I call this meeting to order at 6:41 p.m. Section 2, swearing in. If there's any senators here who have not sworn in yet, please stand and raise your right hand. Okay. I'm going to read you a statement, and you just say, I do afterwards. Do you hereby swear that you will faithfully serve the students of Wichita State University, act in accordance with the Constitution of the student body, and fulfill all duties and responsibilities required of the office of student senator, that you will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the student body of Wichita State University? Okay, you may be seated. Section 3, roll call. Clerk Fry.
With 31 members present and 12 absent, that makes simple majority 17 and 2/3 majority 21.
Okay. Section 4, introductions and reports. Item 1, report from the executive branch. Vice President Martins.
Good evening, Senators. Last week, President O'Keefe and I attended the basketball tip-off lunch, and we are excited to see what our student athletes are able to accomplish this season. President O'Keefe attended the ICAA meeting last week to understand more ways that we can better support our student athletes in general. We have 5 organizations seeking recognition tonight. We have 4 bills up for individual funding requests, and we also have an appointment up for an associate justice position. The ICT Cross Campus Coalition will meet next week. Student Advisory Council for Kansas Board of Regents met today to continue their efforts for higher education planning. K-Board will meet next week in Lawrence at KU. If you are looking for something to do on Halloween, please join our Freshman Leadership Council in Deco Lanterns. They will be painting pumpkins and doing some Halloween bingo. This will be Tuesday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. in the RSC, room 265. Costumes are encouraged, and there's a chance to win prizes. While this is targeted more towards freshmen, anyone who is wanting to attend is more welcome. And finally, President O'Keefe, myself, and Director Paunetto will attend the Haku Conference next week, and I will yield the rest of my time to our Director of Community Engagement and Outreach, Director Gordon, to talk about Diversity Week.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyla Gordon, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Outreach. I'm going to talk to you today about Diversity Week. Okay, so overview of Diversity Week. Diversity Week will be happening Monday, October 30th through Friday, November 3rd. Our theme this year is A Different World, Learn from Others, and Value Everyone, which is an acronym for LOVE. So we have 2 Diversity Week projects going on, starting right now and during Diversity Week. So our first one is Shockers Around the World. This was actually put up today, so you can go downstairs in the Cadman Gallery on the first floor. And it just is a representation of our international students here at WSU. It's just all their flags. And then there's a QR code in the Cadman Gallery that you can scan, and then you can look up a certain country, and it tells you all the information that you want to know. Our second one is Hues and Hearts. This is kind of our bigger one that will be happening actually during Diversity Week. So basically we're going to have a canvas, and we're going to have a whole bunch of different colors. Individuals can come up, choose a color, put their fingerprint in it, and put it on the canvas. And then it just is kind of representing a different world, because we all act, look, and are just different from each other, but we can all be together inside love and like a heart and stuff like that. And like through that and through our projects, like the whole idea of Diversity Week is loving, respecting, and valuing each other. So each day we'll have a sub-theme. Our first day is religion. So we have 2 events going on. We have a religious student organization tabling, which is just kind of just how it sounds. We're going to have religious student organizations with WSU, and they're going to table. And then I also reached out to a few churches that will be tabling as well. And then we have a religion table talk. If any of you have ever heard of Red Table Talk, it's going to be kind of similar to that. We're probably going to live stream it, and then you can just kind of watch. We're going to talk about how everyone is different in their religion, but how you can come together as humans. Our second day is self-value. This is kind of like goes along with identity. Our first event is invitation only, but it's a WSU community brunch. This is kind of just with our departments and student organizations that are not as recognized as much. So this is just going to help with that we're going to show appreciation for gratitude and for their student engagement and resource assistance. Then our second event is Learn from Others and Value Everyone chalk drawings. This is going to be just a time for us to do chalk drawings in front of the RSC and support the LGBTQIA community as well. Also during this event, or during this day, we will have another event of Messages to Self. This is going to be with Feminists on Campus Uniting Students. We will be just writing messages to yourself to love yourself, because you can't love others unless you love yourself. And then we have last event is self-value and self-care. This is going to just be a really chill night, just hanging out with others, and yeah. On Wednesday is our tradition day, so we'll have our Hispanic Serving Institution informational. This is just going to be a chance to learn about Wichita State becoming a Hispanic Serving Institution. Then we have Greek life tabling. That will be happening in the early morning or late morning, early afternoon with our National Panhellenic Council and our Cultural Greek Council. Then we have our Tradition Jeopardy, which our ambassadors for diversity and inclusion will be holding. This is going to just be Jeopardy, talking about tradition over attire, music, food, stuff like that. And then we have our cultural cuisine, which I'm really excited about. This is going to be just a nice feast of different cultures, and their food's going to be represented, and then we're going to have some performances too from different cultures. On Thursday is our Ability Day. We will be doing about ability and mental health resource tabling. So we're going to invite some of our ability and mental health departments and organizations to table. And then we're going to have an ability film screen and discussion in the evening. We're going to showcase the theory of everything, and then we're going to discuss it after the film. Friday is our last day of Diversity Week. We'll be having the Diversity Symposium. This is just going to be wrapping up everything. We are going to have our keynote speaker, Jonathan Grant Brown. He is an avid advocate, and he's going to do his keynote speech. And then we have 7 panelists from all different walks of life, and just they're minorities who are in their career fields now, and we're just going to talk about how it is being in your career field as a minority. And then the cultural showcase will be in the evening. SAC is putting this on. Yeah. Thank you.
Will you be standing for questions? Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, item 2, the Q1 fiscal report of the association with Treasurer Wang. Can we talk about how nice this weather is? This is like, I just feel like this silence is like really uncomfortable, but I just love this weather. It's like literally the perfect weather.
I'd like to second the nice weather.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and apologize first for the pie chart that you are seeing. It is messy. It looks stupid. I know that. It has 20 like different things in there, and I didn't know how to change the legend numbers to say what it was actually. So I'm just gonna manually do that right now. So some of the smaller, tiny pie slices that you're seeing are just some of the expenses and budgets that we did at the beginning of the summer. So for example, that would be like the Judicial Branch, Student Fees Commission, Office of Student Advocates, the Elections Commission. Those are pretty much around the 1,000 to 5,000 mark. The SGA office and the Domestic Student Hardship Fund gets 6,000 and 7,500 respectively. Then we get into the big giant numbers with organizational funding, legislative branch, executive branch, and the International Student Hardship Funds getting $10,000 each. The Shocker Support Locker is getting $15,000. The programming and operations are getting $20,000. Individual funding, as you guys all are pretty tired of hearing by now probably, is $30,000. Agency funds in total for all the agencies, we split the $75,000 at the beginning of the summer. Then we have the auxiliary fund, which is at $186,619.10. Then the big giant appropriations fund, which at the end of it all totaled to $213,000. Then we have salary, wages, and benefits, which is the giant orange that you see at $411,000. I'm going to go ahead and break down the individual funding and organizational funding as well. For individual funding, as you can see, it's just two slices of a pie, which, I mean, I really thought about not putting in here because it's literally two slices, but you know, it's blue and yellow, so why not? For what we have approved is going to be $15,000, $28.96. And you guys might be wondering, wait, we had that individual funding stipulation bill. This number doesn't match up and it doesn't make sense. Correct. However, based off of the receipts of past individual funding bills that we've already passed, they've already come back from the trip and they've already sent in receipts. We're actually not at the $15,028.96. It's actually a little bit less than that, and we expect to be less than that just because all the receipts have been returned. So far, all the receipts that have been returned, they haven't used their full amount. And so we're pretty close to the $15,000. We don't have an accurate number yet because not everybody has come back from their conference and has turned their receipts yet, but we know we're at least $28.96 under the $15,000. The $14,971.04 is what we have left for the year, the whole fiscal year. So depending on if the individual stipulation bill passes tonight, that number will probably be at the $15,000 mark, and we'll probably stop individual funding request applications until we can get all receipts back, and so we don't over allocate dollars to individuals. We don't promise them dollars that we do not have. For the organizational funding, I actually didn't put a pie chart because it was literally $8,000 and $2,000. $8,000 left for the year and $2,000 I have promised, but actually I think they returned their receipts and they only spent $1,602.16. So that number is probably closer to like 8,400-ish. Any questions?
Senator Bobbitt.
Is the distribution for individual funding including the individual funding bills that are up for vote tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't want to exclude those just because Finance Commission did approve them, and so that is what we have in our Finance Commission records, and not based off of senatorial records, if that makes sense.
And if I could add really fast, in the normally during the first quarter, right, we spend the money, but not everyone uses it because travels throughout the semester. So in the next time that we come back up to present this number, this 2 will turn into 4 to start looking at what people used of the approved amount. And then you might see the spring number get higher because there's money that will roll over into the spring semester. If you remember of that 15,000, if students only really spend 9 of it, then right, the rest of the money it goes back into the budget to then be reused in the spring. So the next time you see this report, this chart itself will probably add a third slice or possibly a fourth slice to start reporting back on those numbers of used expenses as well.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none. Oh, wait, Senator Lewis.
When you say when does the fiscal year end for the Senate? Or government?
It's June 30th.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Item 3, report from the Office of the Student Advocates.
I figured it out. Hi, everyone. I'm Tatum Graham. I'm the graduate student advocate. I'm just here to kind of give you an update on everything that Ashlyn and I have done. She was not able to make it tonight, so I'm here representing for both of us. Since between May 1st and today, we have handled 23 cases. 8 of those cases were parking concerns and appeals. Another 8 were academic appeals. Currently, Ashlyn is working on 2 academic and faculty concern appeals, 3 parking concern appeals, and 1 pending case. I currently only have 1 parking concern and appeal. So as far as like progress and updates about food for fines, for the September food for fines, 65 citations were donated for. That was a total of $1,725. We had got a total of 697 items from that event. And we started sending confirmation emails to students who donated so that they were notified that their citations were either voided or why they were not. We also added the traffic citations to food for fines. We did not get any of those donated to in the month of September. For October, we got 134 citations donated towards, which was $3,505 worth in citations. We got a total of 1,225 items donated, so that was almost double what we did in September. We did get one of our traffic violators to donate for this October session, so that was pretty good. Other projects we're working on. We are trying to help spread awareness about what the advocates do to students on campus, because not a lot of people know about us. We're working on brochures to get out when we're doing tabling, outreach events. We also have business cards. In January, we plan to host a Let's Get Social, which will just consist of a game night with undergrad and graduate students. That will be a chance for students to address their concerns, ask us any questions about what we do, and all of that. We are also working on trying to get student parking in the parking garage. It kind of operate how the flats works. So that that parking pass, I believe, is good for other lots on campus. So we're trying to do that with the parking garage. Also, to add to that, we are trying to propose not having citations issued after 5 p.m. in the garage, just like other lots. Overall, the goal of that is just to increase student utilization in the parking garage while making it more student-friendly. We are working with Victoria Owens, the Student Services Committee Chair, as well as Cole Matthews and Jacob Burford to get their support for this proposal. Other than that, Ashlyn and I serve on the Hardship Fund Advisory Board,
the LGBTQ task force, the bias incident response group, and the campus climate committee. That's it.
Are you going to stand for questions?
Sure.
Are there any questions? Senator Suma?
I don't know if you might know this, but after 5, usually like the parking kinda does not offer citations. So does that count if you park like on a red sticker place?
So that will always be cited no matter what. So red spots, handicap, a regular car and a motorcycle spot, all that is always enforced. The parking garage is currently 24 hours enforced, so if you don't pay to park there, you're going to get a citation. We're trying to match how student lots and faculty lots are. After 5 p.m., you can really park anywhere besides those restricted spots. So that's why we're trying to get just, I don't know, clear any confusion. There's not a high rate of people using the garage after 5, so yeah.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Item 4, report from the speaker. I don't really have much for you guys. Just keep scheduling your one-on-ones with your committee chairs, Brandon and I. I think Brandon has a Calendly that he wants you to use, but that's too techy for me, so just email me when you want to meet. As far as next Senator Development meeting, we will be looking through past legislative journals, and Chairperson Thompson will be leading that, so that's fun. And just a reminder for attendance in the dress code, you have 3 unexcused absences before you're subject to membership review board, and dress code for Senate meetings is business professional to business casual. So, any questions? Okay. Item 5, report from Senate leadership, Chairperson Thompson.
Good evening, Senators. So happy start of the second 8 weeks of the school year, and thank you to all who attended the mayoral debate earlier today. It was a good time with some insightful answers from the candidates. Next Wednesday, we'll be hosting the school board candidates from 6 to 7 p.m. in Hubbard Hall, room 221. I'll be there for the start of it, but since it starts at 6, I'll make my way over to the RSC before committee starts. But for any Wichita voters or really anyone interested in hearing about it, I'd encourage you to do the same thing as me. So next Wednesday, as Speaker Howard just said, she's invited me to organize the next Senator Development activity. And so I plan on having us dive into some SGA archives. And before you groan, I promise it should be pretty fascinating. I went through it last week with the Director of Special Collections, and it was pretty cool. So, yeah. But with that, I request that everyone bring a personal computer or some sort of thing, if able to, or coordinate to use the same one with, someone else. But yeah, it should be fun. From last week's Oversight Committee meeting, we unanimously passed the funding stipulation bill and had extensive and productive conversations on the ethics bill. We ran out of time, so that one was tabled for next week, but it's slated to return to Senate for final vote on November 1st. So yeah, next up for us is talking about lobbying opportunities, RSOs, and cabinet appointment procedures. I stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Chairperson Owens.
Do you know if the mayoral debates were filmed or live streamed? Is there a way to access that?
I don't remember exactly where to access it, but yes, it was live streamed. So anyone interested in going back and, watching a whole hour's worth of Lily Wu and Brandon Whipple talk, I think Loudlight, or is it Loudlight? Yeah, Loudlight should have the video posted online or on their social media. So, yeah.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Chairperson Haynes.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody had a good fall break. Welcome back. So first things first, I'll talk about, well, I guess you already heard about it. Diversity Week is happening. Here just to plug my specific day that I helped plan, which would be Traditions Day. I think this day would be really important for y'all to come and attend, as well as the rest of Diversity Week. I'm gonna plug my day because it's my day. So with the Greek Life Table, and just come and see what our diverse Greek organizations have to offer. I personally believe that they offer a lot to the campus and the wider Wichita community, so I hope to do the same. Regarding culture cuisine, I heard some of the performances that are gonna be there are gonna be top notch, y'all. I'm not gonna lie to y'all at all. They're set up to be good. Come taste food from different cultures. The food is also gonna be very good for the restaurants and stuff that we have coming. And then for Tradition Jeopardy, just come in the afternoon, unwind from the stresses of classes and whatnot. You might get to win something. I don't know. From what I heard from ADI got some stuff for y'all. Okay, moving on from that. Well, actually, no, hopping back to that. Please volunteer for helping us out during Diversity Week. The Diversity Week Planning Committee, myself, Chairperson Owens, Director Gordon, and then AJ Jones over there in the back. We have done a lot of work since the summer and since school year started to make this week great for y'all. So I would appreciate if y'all would come and not only enjoy, but like help us out a bit, because there's only so much we can do. Moving on to what we talked about in DEI committee last time. So there were some talks going around about how can we help our students with like mental health challenges and whatnot. So we're in the works of partnering with the Graduate Student Council on their mental health awareness packages, because that's something that they usually do towards the end of the semester. So we're in talks with that. Also, we went through some agency assignments, which I will not say now. So if y'all have any questions on those, please just shoot me an email or ask me after Senate. And now to my favorite part of the day, DEI, agency updates. Y'all, it's a lot of events, so I hope y'all got y'all's pens ready. So, firstly, Black Student Union is hosting their Montstober Week, the week of October 23rd to the 27th. That Monday, they'll have Full Moon at the Apollo, which is their talent show. Tuesday is the Bootastic Bee, which is their spelling bee. Both very good events. Wednesday, they have Haunted Treats and Eats. Thursday, they have Safety and Spooky Situations. Friday, they have their Spectacular Pumpkin Patch, which is their like tabling event. Next up, we have Graduate Student Council. No upcoming events from them as yet. However, last week they did have their monthly Graduate Student Council socials, where they just did some bowling. It was a good time had by everybody. Next up would be Spectrum. They had, last week they had their LGBTQ+ in community in STEM event, which was a mousetrap car like racing activity. Sounded fun. Moving forward, we have First Gen Student Organization. Next week is a week of volunteering with the Community Service Board. So they are volunteering with Northwest High School, doing some tutoring on Thursday, October 19th. Sorry, that's this week, y'all, my bad. Thursday, October 19th, they're doing some tutoring with Northwest High School from 3:30 to 6:30 p.m. And then they're doing the Shocker Neighborhood Coalition cleanup on Saturday, October 21st from 8 to 11 a.m. Again, if y'all have any questions, just ask me after Senate. The National Student Union has their futsal tournament. If y'all don't know what futsal is, it's small indoor soccer. So yeah, they're having that tournament coming up on Saturday, October 28th from 1 to 5 p.m. Registration is $15 per team. And then Asian Student Conference is having their All Around Asia Week. So October 23rd is Bites of Asia. October 24th is Crafted Cultures. October 25th is Support the Fridge. But Support the Fridge is a week-long food drive. October 26th is Moonlit Competitions. And then October 27th is their Halloween Bash. So that's that for agency updates. Yeah, it's time for any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Chairperson Owens.
Hello, super quick report. I wasn't able to make it to my committee last week as I was far away in Oklahoma. But I had Lily and Nathan, chairpersons here, cover that meeting, and it went well. Yay! And we passed 2 pieces of legislation, which we'll see today and vote. Besides that, I work for Loud Light, which is a voter advocacy group, and picking up where Jay left off about the mayoral debates, our group is doing Pledge for Pizza Thursday the 26th from 10:30 to 1:30. It's essentially pledging to vote if you're registered. And so again, as well, November 7th from 8 to 10 a.m. we will be doing Do Not Forget to Vote on the election day. So yeah, stop by at the RSC first floor if you want to get those kinds of goodies.
Will you be standing for questions? Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Oh wait, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Senator Lewis.
How good will the pizza be?
You're gonna have to go to figure it out. You're gonna have to show up and pledge to vote. I'm sorry. Hey, we might get Pizza Hut, so it might be good, so just saying.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Subcommittee Chairperson Owens.
Hi. I hope everyone had a restful fall break, even though it seems to get shorter every single year. I don't have much to report. I was not here last week, also in Oklahoma, seeing Hozier. Okay, tough crowd. I'm just still getting caught up on everything that happened last week, but I do have some upcoming one-on-ones with my committee members that I'm excited about, and some other personal legislation that I'm finishing up that we should see on the floor soon. I want to encourage all of my fellow senators to talk to Kylie and Brandon and other Senate leadership if you're having struggles with anything, because we don't know what or if there's a problem unless people tell us. Especially, I know that first, your students, and because of that, your senators and advocates, but above all, your people with lives and struggles and jobs and families outside of this body. So, and I know that having struggles is a very human experience, so don't feel guilty about struggling. I also know that coming back from fall break and just breaks in general, especially with a big one coming up in December, it can be hard to get back into the swing of things, especially right after midterms. So finally, I want to encourage you all to reach out if you have ideas for legislation or just general passions, but don't know how to get started or who to talk to. And finally, to ask questions during Senate about legislation and other topics brought up in this body, because no matter how dumb the question is, if you have a question, I'm sure other people in the body also have that same question. And even if they don't, think about yourself. Mull it over, because you deserve to vote on things that you understand completely, especially since in Senate we have this culture of getting nominated and sworn in and then being pushed into Senate and then saying, good luck, hope you know everything regarding Senate, like how to use your mics and motion, and that's just not fair or inclusive to the new people. So if you have questions, please, please, please ask, especially older senators who've been in this body for a long time, because even I don't know everything about Senate or how to write legislation, and that's okay. Don't feel guilty about that, but please reach out, because we can only change the culture if we know it's a problem and talk about it. That's all I have, if anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson Arns.
Hello, guys. In our meeting last week, Student Affairs met with student advocates to discuss their parking proposal. We had a very productive discussion on parking, and we decided to combine resources as both the advocates and the subcommittee would like to see this proposal come to fruition. It's going to be our year, guys. We're going to get parking done. As a subcommittee, we unanimously passed SB-66-140, increased eligibility for hardship fund application, which then went on to be passed in student services. Our clerk and pro temp positions have been filled by Senator Burford and Senator Boydo, both of which are on the consent agenda for tonight. That's all I have.
Will you be standing for questions?
Yes.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Chairperson Atkinson.
There wasn't a trash can in the way tonight, so that's nice. So my committee passed unanimously the professor course profile resolution, and I'll be reaching out to my committee members to schedule one-on-ones in the coming week. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Item 6, report from the advising staff. Advisor McLean.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing good, and I hope you had a great fall break. Just a few short updates for you all. First of all, I just want to echo a lot of the things that Chairperson Owens mentioned. I'm here to support you all, and I want to make sure that you all get the most out of this experience, but more importantly, your entire college tenure for the 3, 4, 11 years that I have you. Hopefully it's not 11, but we'll figure that out later. But I also wanted to make sure that I wanted to communicate that every single last one of you all are required to have one-on-ones with me once per semester. I asked very nicely at the beginning of the session, and guess what? More than half of y'all haven't done it yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to challenge you all, okay? So our next meeting is on November 1st, and if you have not signed up by November 1st, doesn't mean that your meeting has to be by November 1st, but if you have not signed up by November 1st, I will read your name off the list for the record to show. So please make sure that you are signing up. The links in Teams, because everything is what? Thank you. So now no one should have an excuse now. On the other side of that, please make sure that you're also meeting with Speaker Howard and your committee and subcommittee chairs as well. The purpose behind these meetings is to allow you all the opportunity to better know those of which you help make this room run. And that way, if you have any questions or if there's any issues that you're seeing as senators, we're able to address those things proactively. So if it's something that's pertaining to a procedural thing that you have no idea how these things operate and why the things operate the way they are, you have a list of chairpersons. You have Kylie, you have Tessa as well, who are able to help facilitate some of those things, but I'm also here as well. So please make sure that you're signing up for those, as my email is now starting to blow up. Yay. On that same note, I encourage each and every one of you all to be reviewing the packets regularly. I encourage you all to be asking questions. I really appreciated what Chairperson Owens mentioned. It's okay to ask questions as much as I would love to see another meeting where we get a series of unanimous consents and then we all leave before it turns 8 o'clock. I would also love to see a Senate where we can also ask questions and engage in some positive dialogue as well. So I encourage you all to speak your minds, ask the questions that you want to ask, not necessarily the questions everyone else wants to ask. So, and I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Moving into Section 5, Public Forum and Presentations. Public Forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate. This is a time for the association to listen to what the community has to say, and to that we offer our undivided respect and attention. I would like to remind everyone that although we allow the speakers the privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the association or the university. Item 1, housing and residence life.
Good evening. My name is Katie Austin. I serve as the Director of Housing and Residence Life. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight as a part of the Department of Housing and Residence Life, their annual budget process. We get our rates ready for the upcoming year and present those to the Kansas Board of Regents in November. And so prior to that, we do work on our budget, we propose our rates, and we bring those to 2 different student constituencies for comment, one of those being the resident assistants that are employed by housing, and one of those being the staff senate. So we are here, I believe those have been passed out. Thanks so much, Brandon. To review the rates as a summary, the rate increases for the upcoming 24-25 academic year stand at 3% in dining, 2% on doubles, 3% on singles, and flat on our triple rate rooms. The goal always being to keep our low-cost options as low as possible while still accounting for the rises that we've seen in our utility bills and in some of our major projects that we have going on. One of the major projects I would like to mention is we will be replacing in summer of '24 all of our mattresses, our twin XL mattresses that sit in all of our double rooms. They are 10 years old. It is time. So we will be doing that as well as getting new beds, and that includes the frame. We're actually investing in a new product that will make every double, so the twin XL beds, loftable. So previously we've had a limited number of loft kits, and every student that wanted to loft their bed was unable to, and so every one of these beds will be self-loftable. It's kind of a new thing they have out there. So we're investing in that so that students will have some more options within their room to make their space their own. So that is a major project that will be going underway summer of '24. Other things that I want to mention, we have gotten feedback in the past about the lack of scholarships available to cover housing specifically, and so we took some time in our strategic planning this last year to create some funds that were set aside for that purpose. We were able to work with the Office of Financial Aid to partner on some new scholarships and provided that to 50 residential students who showed financial need. It's called the Reside and Thrive Scholars, and so not only are we providing that financial contribution, we're also working to provide them with additional support. They've been assigned a mentor within housing or student affairs that they can meet with. They're doing some extra social programming, so really trying to provide more than, beyond the dollar to give some extra support to those students. In addition, we did finally reach the fund level to issue our first student scholarship from our foundation account that we were raising monies through the different social media campaigns that they've done for the Day of Giving, and we did issue our first scholarship. It's a $2,000 scholarship to an international student who's living in housing. We had 35 international students apply, and we issued that. The donors who are former resident assistants that gave our lead gift are actually going to serve as mentors to that student and are meeting with him regularly. So excited that we are able to set aside some funds throughout this process to try to invest with students who have that unmet financial need but still want to live in housing and have that on-campus living experience. So I think those are the high points. I stand for questions.
Chairperson Adriana Owens.
How are you going about advertising those scholarships to students? Because I didn't hear about them, and I just wondered where the advertising is going to.
Great question. So actually, Shilu Surrender in the Office of Financial Aid was doing some very targeted marketing because she knew the folks who had unmet financial need within their financial aid package and was doing outreach through her office to individuals that met the criteria. They actually partnered, and so we provided some funds and they provided some funds from their general pot. So it was not advertised. It was done through some strategic marketing that included her looking at what had been given to different folks, what their aid packages looked like, who could benefit from this the most, who are already signed up to live in housing. So yeah, great question.
Senator Knight.
So I have like two questions. I'll ask them both, and you can answer them in order. With the raise in percentages and the price, will that also raise the application fee and the down payment as well? And then on top of that, we all know, everyone in this room knows that we are overflowed with students, and it's a common fact that we all know. With that, let's say a student who does not get a housing position and who does not get a room because you are overflowed. Let's say they pay that down payment and that $75 application fee. Will they get a refund this next year if that does happen?
Correct. If we are ever able to not accommodate a student, we would give a refund. We were able to accommodate every single student who requested housing this year. They might not have gotten the room type that they wanted, but we do have rooms, and we are currently not full. We started the semester at our high point of 1,405 students, and we can house, our capacity is 1,450 students. So we are not completely full, but we are very, like you mentioned, very full in most of our spaces. We are retaining the $75 application fee and the $200 prepayment as is. We are not doing any increases to either of those numbers. And yes, we will always cancel and refund if we are unable to house a student if we physically have no space.
Chairperson Haynes.
Yeah, hi, good evening. So given record enrollment at Wichita State University, which is, 17,548 to be exact, I believe. Did that number factor into these increases in housing cost or no?
Great question. Yeah, we kind of operate outside of that number because such a small portion of that, about 8%, choose to live or are able to live on campus with the 3 residence hall buildings we have. So record enrollment is great, but we focus on our application numbers and doing some projecting with the Office of Planning and Analysis to see where we'll be each year. And again, to look at, what our costs are, what our expenditures are, what are our major projects we need to do to keep our residence halls in good shape, and what those rates might need to be in order to hit those numbers. So, yeah.
Chairperson Owens.
I also had 2 questions. The first question, last year, or last session, I guess I should say, I remember you also giving similar presentation and saying that we're also increasing by a similar margin. So is this like an expected increase every year of like about 2.5, 3%?
Great question. It is expected each year through dining. That's actually a part of our dining contract with Chartwell's. The other portion, it can vary. And so we last year had to raise, we did not raise the doubles, we just did the singles. And so this year we had to do a minor raise to the doubles. So it will vary each year. We were able to hold flat for 4 years prior to that, kind of during COVID and when we were really being very cost conscious on what kind of projects we were investing into. So I'm hopeful that we can get to where the doubles can be flat for a few years as well. We see singles as kind of a commodity that students, it's a want, not necessarily a need. And so if any area has to take a raise, we tend to do it with our single rooms and make sure that, again, those low cost options stay as low as possible.
Can I ask my second question?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you talked about I believe you said 50 people scholarship. Is that scholarship filled? Are you speaking past tense, for example, this school year, or is it the next school year?
Yeah, great question. So those students were identified in late August, early September, and so they've been issued. So we have our 50 Reside and Thrive scholars that we're working with for this year. They'll receive the same amount of funds for spring semester, and then we're hopeful that we're going to be able to continue doing that year after year as funds are available.
Chairperson Owens.
So let's talk a little bit about the single rooms. You said that was a need and not a want.
Want and not a need.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that one.
Which I just want to talk a little bit about students who do need a single room for accommodations or accessibility reasons or whatever reason to the student. Is there any way that we could talk more about if they need a single room but are consistently rising the price on them and they can't afford it, what would that look like in terms of your office?
Yeah, absolutely. We work closely with the Office of Student Accommodations and Testing to accommodate students with any type of ADA need, including our ESAs that we have in the buildings. And so we really do handle those on a case-by-case basis, that if there's financial need, again, can we meet that through scholarship dollars to assure that they can afford the single room that's needed to them. So I do think think we pay special attention to folks who come in through that office and make sure that we are able to accommodate those in a way that's equitable. So,
Senator Johnson.
Okay. I was saying with the like you said that there's going to be a price increase yearly, and with it being like on average maybe 8,000, like 600, not including tuition and books and other fees that students have to pay. Will there be like a maximum amount for housing, or is like a cap we reach at where we stop raising the prices, or will it just keep increasing yearly?
That's a great question. We try to be conscious of that. There is no cap at the top that says we can't go over a certain rate. It's really a supply and demand scenario. We have actually record numbers of returning students who are not required to live on campus opting to live on. So at this point, we're seeing that there is a demand for that housing and that our price point isn't too high, that folks are considering that still to be a value that they're opting into. So absolutely, I think if we see those numbers drop off, that would tell us we're out of the market and we need to really think about what we can do to bring that down. So I think we are just as sensitive to that as the other apartments in town when it comes to supply and demand of rooms and what our pricing is.
Chairperson Haynes.
Yeah, back at you with my second question.
Mm-hmm.
So you said about the scholarship. Love the scholarship idea. Have y'all thought about making it a recurring scholarship? Because as you just said, the amount of returning students is increasing. So if they get that scholarship this year, is there a system in place for them to have it next year, or?
Currently, it is a first-year scholarship because those first-year students, again, are mostly required to live on campus. There's lots of ways to exempt out of that requirement, but because of that requirement, we really want to support those students, the upperclassmen students who have the option to move off. We feel like they've got a few more options, but it's a great point. I think there were 3 or 4 of those scholarships based on Shilu's recommendation given to upperclassmen students based on certain scenarios, a transfer student, I think there was a couple sophomores in there. So she is, again, evaluating their aid packages as a whole and seeing who's got the greatest need because she knows more about their individual situations and where the struggle might be. But I agree. I think it's something we could look at.
Senator Cowles.
Hi, so you said that your agreement with the dining services team, that factors into the cost for the dorms. I was just wondering, I know that the dining services team has taken on quite a few projects over the summer that were a little bit costly. Are their expenses being factored into how much students pay for their dorms? And then also with the overflow, and you said that upperclassmen are looking more to live on campus. Are you looking at expanding the housing options available for upperclassmen students since freshmen have the majority of the dorms?
Yeah, great question. So the first part about the dining services contract, any projects that they undertake, we have in our contract a certain amount of refresh dollars that they can use each year to take on some of those projects. So the 3% is just the contractual agreement. It isn't necessarily going to flex if they decide to do more expensive projects or things like that. So that is kind of their standard, and they need to budget within that 3%, knowing that they're not going to get any more than that from the student costs. So hopefully that answers that. It's a pretty steady amount. And then the question about upperclassmen housing. So again, we always, occupancy management is really a system of looking at, again, supply and demand and how many first-year students we have coming in, what are those projections, because we always want to accommodate every first-year student that needs housing. And then we try to accommodate as many returners as we can. So this year we actually took a floor in the suites and used it for returners because of that. So I think we have the flexibility. Really where our students go is our own internal process of saying Shocker Hall's first years and suites suites his first year. So the suites will really become our flex building in the future. If for some reason the amount of freshmen living on campus goes down, we'll use that to accommodate more upperclassmen. And we'll just continue to watch our numbers each year and see where our applications are at to make sure we can house as many students as possible.
For the sake of time, we're going to close the questioning period.
I would be happy to take any more questions via email. My email is katie.austin@wichita.edu, and I appreciate the interest. We'd be happy to hear more from you at another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Item 2, Kian Williams.
Shalom, Senators. My name is Keen Williams, and I serve as the president of the Jewish Student Alliance. I'm here today to speak about the student reaction to events in Israel around Gaza. The JSA has been largely disheartened by the reaction of some of our university members to the Hamas terror attacks targeting Israelis and Jews. As a reminder, on October 7th, residents of Israel were blindsided by thousands of missile strikes and invasion from Hamas in Gaza. Nearly 2,000 Israelis were killed, marking the single deadliest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. Several weeks ago, I penned a letter to the Sunflower discussing my experience as a Jewish student and the anti-Semitism I faced in organizations like student government. I called for widespread condemnation of anti-Semitism and support for Jewish students. I was horrified to wake up on October 7th to see students celebrating terrorism and calling for more Jewish death. While the Jewish Student Alliance has been focused on empathy, exploring the nuances of the conflict, and attempting to reconcile differences in policy, many other student leaders, including an editor for the Sunflower, decided to enable terrorism and call for the deaths of civilians. And at this point, the JSA must speak out. We are being told that civilians are getting a taste of their own medicine. And as a matter of fact, these students can't even call them civilians, labeling all Israelis as colonizers that deserve to be slaughtered. What sort of disgusting ethical system is this? Why is it considered moral to kill babies because their parents are Israeli? Supporting the eradication of Jews and Israelis simply because they are Jewish and Israeli is by definition genocide. I once again ask a question that I have yet to receive an answer to. Even if you disagree with the actions of the Israeli government and believe them to be settler colonialists, what moral justification does that provide you to support the thousands of deaths of innocent men, women, and children? We justify coming here today to speak because Jews are facing rising anti-Semitism across the nation. Many universities have been experiencing more anti-Semitic incidents in the last 2 weeks, and we fear that WSU will too. We implore the student body, do not take your anger out on the Jewish people. Be angry at the Israeli government if you must. Hell, I am too. But supporting terrorism and genocide is not the answer that you should be looking for. Support peaceful dialogue over war. We do not claim to have all of the answers. If we did, we wouldn't need to be here. But what we can claim is empathy. Empathy for all Israelis, Jews, Palestinians, and Muslims across the world. We can engage in debate over the conflict without delving into anti-Semitism, and I implore you all to remember that. Let us be clear once more. The JSA endorses a two-state solution, and we condemn Israeli settlements in the West Bank. But under no circumstances will we allow anyone to justify the rape, torture, and murder of innocent Israeli and Jewish lives. On Tuesday, October 24th at 4 p.m. in the RSE room 319, the JSA will be holding a vigil for all lives lost in the terrible conflict, because every death is a tragedy, and may their memories be a blessing. Am Yisrael Chai. I will stand for any questions if there are any.
Chairperson Owens.
Hi, I just had a quick clarifying question. You use the verbiage "we," so I just wanted to clarify if this is your speech for your organization, JSA, or your personal beliefs.
Correct. This would be considered a statement from the JSA.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Item 3, Jeffrey Gates.
Yeah, I don't need that. This is the first time I've been in this room. Really? I don't care. This is the first time I've been in this room in 35 years. I was actually a senator in 1988, and I didn't quit. I'm just incredibly late right now, and so, I sat through several years of these meetings as a senator and a holdover senator, and the reason why I came to you guys today is I actually had two things to talk to you a little bit about, and something conceivably that you might have some control over. For the last 30 years, I've been an advisor to one of the fraternities at Wichita State University. And I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of basically sometimes how the discipline is handed out a little bit. And the first thing I want to share with you is that the senator who talked about with a great excitement about his involvement with the diversity and the things that that his organization brought. If one of you tonight would go on and make an anonymous accusation against his chapter, in 3 days he will receive a letter, and his chapter will then be put on suspension until there is a trial. I'm sorry, what? So if somebody just made in fact, not his, pick another one, any organization, any fraternity, any sorority, student organization, go on and anonymously make an accusation, and that organization will have to suspend its function until there is a trial. Now, what if it's like, well, what if you did that yourself tonight? You know it's not true. It doesn't matter. With the student organizations, basically, you are guilty until there is a trial where then you can show this has no recourse, this has nothing. And if that doesn't scare you, it should. I think presumption of innocence is vital to our system. But here's how you could also take it further. If one of you will go tonight and anonymously accuse his organization, and then if one of you will wait 2 weeks and do that, and then another one wait 2 more weeks, literally you can have that organization not meet, not recruit, not do anything for the entire semester. Does it have to be justified? Does it have to ever, the trial may go through and they find you innocent. That should scare you. The second thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, raise your hand if you know what an event for a recognized student organization is. Raise your hand if you have a clear idea of what an event for a recognized student organization is. Okay? So if 20 people go to a park, is that an event that would need to be registered? Raise your hand if you think that would need to be registered. If 3 people went to a soccer game, would that need to be registered? Yes. If you look at the section 10 of events, food will be served or sold. Do they serve food at Coke Arena? Then if your members go there, you need to register that in Soccer Sync. If that's not ludicrous. So if 4 of the members of your organization go to Spangles, does that need to be registered? Well, do they serve food at Spangles? Yes. The 20 people that go to the park? No, there's no food. 25, 50? I will tell you, ironically, if the number gets over 100, yes, you would then have to register it. So the reason for bringing this to you is that the organization that I have been a mentor and been a sponsor for, a while back we went through a trial and we were accused of, and let me make sure that, because this sounds terrible, we were accused of hanging flyers in the dorms. And I know what you guys are thinking. Yeah, you got what you deserved. Hanging flyers in the dorm? How could you? Well, you can't hang flyers in the dorm. You actually have to take the flyers to the desk and they hang it. But they didn't go, don't do it again. What did they do? They held a trial. They brought in 2 faculty members and a student, and somebody had to tell their wife, honey, I'm going to a trial today for a fraternity. Oh, wow, what's it going to be? And then he had to go back and say they were hanging flyers in the dorm. The reason I bring this up is I think presumption of innocence is important. What I would like you guys to consider is somebody, whether it's with SEAL or one of these organizations, needs to come and explain how you can put someone on suspension just from an anonymous allegation. Because again, if my fraternity and this gentleman's fraternity were rivals and I didn't want to play him this week in sports, I don't even have to make a phone call. I just go online and I say there was sexual misconduct at an event this weekend. Does that seem just or fair to you? And this idea of not being able to determine or having these exaggerated ideas of what an event is, again, if you have a party and you have a third-party vendor, I think that would need to be registered. If you have a philanthropic event, absolutely, that would need to be registered. But 5 people just going to a restaurant, I have a hard time with that. Again, I would request that you guys look into how that is handled, because when I ran for student government, part of what I wanted to do was help students, help protect student organizations. Yeah, it's not always sexy. A lot of times it's boring. But knowing that somebody could take away this gentleman's joy by just going online tonight and literally keeping his organization from being involved, because once they suspend him, you would not be part of the diversity fair. That makes no sense to me. And especially knowing whether it was real or not. So I appreciate your time. Again, it's not a great topic, but I feel like, and to be honest, my organization has a couple of different ways. Before the organization lawyered up, I thought, you know what? I thought I would go to the organization that worked with recognized student organizations, who had a little bit of sway and pull with those organizations, and maybe give them a chance to do what's right for student organizations. I'm not here to make attorneys a lot of money. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to do that. And I want to be responsible. But also, I don't want to be in an abusive relationship. Thank you for your time. I will stand for any questions you might have.
Chairperson Haynes.
Yeah, I guess I'll phrase this in a question. So at the beginning of the school year, there is an event that the SOC chair puts on called Nuts and Bolts, and that helps RSOs, which include members of fraternity and sorority life, and their executive boards, to come and see how things are run. And one of those things in Nuts and Bolts that is covered would be issues of student conduct. First question, did you know that Nuts and Bolts was a thing and that one of the things that they cover is student conduct?
Yes.
Okay, so then would you be familiar with the conduct policy regarding posting flyers and posting events? In that, the conduct policy is the trial is the process of it. Now, are they gonna put you on immediate suspension for putting up flyers? They say that they don't. However, if that's your experience, I'm not here to take away from that. Sure. However, are you aware that they are not allowed to do that without explicit permission?
Yes, and as an advisor, I would tell you that one of the, I think, holdovers from COVID for a lot of student organizations is that when people got back together, we had people that didn't know how to turn on the lights because they had been gone for a while. And so again, at some point with some of these, I think there can be an adult in the room. I think you'd be naive to think that there's not drinking in the dorms. I can tell you there is no drinking in the fraternity house. Because if someone drank in the fraternity house, they would be expelled immediately. We don't put up with it. You can't write a letter, okay? Having said that, there are degrees. If somebody is doing something unsavory, if someone's doing anything that amounts to violence or whatever, it's treated one way. But I think flyers, I think to have a trial for flyers, again, that just seems heavy-handed.
Senator Bobbitt.
Having attended the nuts and bolts training, I do see how it could have left you unprepared for the challenges faced by RSOs. I guess my question to you would be, has your group run afoul with student government when it comes to events? I know the new system has been tripping up a lot of people unnecessarily, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience there.
So initially, this is probably a month ago, one of the, if you want to call it traditions at Wichita State University, is the sororities would go over to the fraternity houses and they would take their composites, which are the pictures of all the guys, and they would decorate them and they would bring them back to the guys. How did they get in the house? People would give them the key. And conversely, the fraternities would go into the sororities, okay? They would take their composite, they would decorate them, and they would return them, okay? One of the sororities turned in our fraternity on a Wednesday, and so immediately we were suspended for 2 weeks as they did a trial. But oddly enough, 2 days later on Friday, another sorority actually came to the fraternity and took our composite. Now, at the end of it, there was no punishment. The only punishment was for 2 weeks we were not allowed to meet, recruit, play intramural sports, do anything. So again, run afoul, yes. I think, again, sexual misconduct is terrible. Alcohol or any type of substance abuse is terrible. Hazing, we don't put up with that. But being given the keys to the sorority houses so that our guys can go in and grab a composite and decorate it and return it, it seems as though there are people who are trying to justify positions. That might be a way that we would reference it.
Chairperson Owens. Victoria.
Sure.
Hi. One of my blank spots, I don't know much about fraternities, but could you tell me more about what solution you're trying to garner here? Like, are you trying to get an overhaul on those kind of systems or changing of those?
So the initial solution would be is that fraternities would no longer be recognized student organizations. If we were no longer recognized student organizations, then we would still play intramurals, we would still do Hippodrome, we would still do Shocktoberfest. We could do everything. We just wouldn't have to pay money into IFC, and we wouldn't get a letter. We wouldn't get a list of incoming students. However, if we were not a recognized student organization, we could start. We'd be much more here at Wichita State. We'd be much more like KU or K-State. We could actually sign incoming freshmen in February or March, which is the practice at those institutions. So, our particular fraternity. We have a building. We don't need to meet on campus. So, but the reason I'm coming here is that I just think that there needs to be growth in the system. I would share with you that one chapter at Missouri State University has more members than all of the fraternities combined at Wichita State. And I don't consider Missouri State to be some huge campus. So again, what I'm looking for is maybe an adult in the room, someone to look at these things and say, maybe this shouldn't be pushed to a trial.
Chairperson Haynes.
So, how do I phrase this as a question?
So say what you want, and then at the end say, wouldn't you agree?
Okay, sure. I love that. So so subject to correction again. So the student conduct, like policy and process, garners all offenses from posting flyers where you're not supposed to post flyers to the gruesome stuff. And wouldn't you consider that to be a blanket safety measure to put chapters on, for less of a better word, cease and desist, so that they can figure out so that they can be, per se, fairly tried for the infraction, innocent, guilty, yada, yada. And while that process is going on, not be able to potentially carry out the activities that they're doing? Would you not say that that is completely fair?
So let me answer that in two ways. I think if you're talking about creating a culture of banner hangers, I don't know if that's even a culture thing. Again, if this was a sexual assault, I agree. If there was a violation, if people were going to the hospital for alcohol or substance abuse, I totally agree. But what I would challenge you is if I go online tonight and turn your organization in anonymously, and for 2 weeks you're not allowed to be in the diversity program, would you feel like that's fair?
Well, the question wouldn't be if it's fair or not. The question would be, is that the process? And since that is the process, go for it.
Please refrain from making statements and just ask questions. Does anyone else have any questions to ask? Senator Lewis.
Is it possible that you misinterpreted any rules, for example, pertaining to events? Is it possible that you misinterpreted a rule on your organization providing food rather than there being food provided where the organization members go?
So I have right here from the 1920 RSO handbook what the qualifications for an event, and by the way, that's 2019 and 2020, not 1919 and 1920. So again, these aren't clearly stated, and what it does is it allows the people in power to decide. So again, there is food served in this building. If this particular organization was an RSO, you guys would need to have registered this event for tonight. If 4 people from the Pottery Guild decide to go to Social Tap, they would need to, in advance, would need to register that. And so at some point, is that preparing anybody for the future? What is that? So to answer your question, I think that these rules are intentionally vague so that people can kind of make determinations, if that answers your question.
For the sake of time, we're going to close the questioning period. Sorry, Adriana Owens, you can go first. No more questions.
My inquiry is directed at Advisor McLean, who deals with our fraternities and sororities. In terms of this, quorum register thingy thing, would you advise that the best way to solve that is to create, amend this to create a quorum situation like we have in Senate, or what do you recommend to help solve that?
So I'm going to provide you all a status update on my current job description. I am no longer in the fraternity sorority life staff here at Wichita State University, so sadly, so I'm going to throw it to the director, interim executive director, who oversees that.
Thanks. Could you repeat that?
About the definition of what an event is, how would you recommend us to solve this issue in terms of the vagueness of it? Would you recommend us to institute a quorum situation of how many people are in this sorority or fraternity, and then half plus one like we do in Senate for events? Or how would you recommend us to fix that?
So there are 2 different factors here. The university, through the Student Code of Conduct, defines what is an organizational event through the university's policies, or what is an organization event. The student government has policy of what establishes a student organization. Student government does have administrative oversight over student organizations. It also, entertains the ability to override decisions that my office makes around student organizations. The student organization handbook is what governs student organization conduct, behavior, events, et cetera, et cetera. I think if the Senate wants to review that, I would engage with our Director of Student Organizations, Aidan Powell, and follow the process in which the Senate has in place to address changes to policy. Knowing that SGA still has a limit to how far its authority goes with student organizations based off of K-Board policies, institutional policies, and sealed policies. And sealed policies as well. So I would say if that is something you all want to look at, I am happy to spend the time to engage in those conversations with you all. But I would also encourage that you engage Aidan in those discussions as well, or Director Powell in those discussions as well. Not to volunteer him, but I just did.
Okay. For the sake of time, we're going to move on, but thank you.
Thank you guys for doing that. And also, I just want to make sure, please nobody turn in anyone's organization for that. That was just meant as a point. Please do not, because he has a zeal and a joy that you can tell for this event, and I would want him to experience that. And so I really do appreciate you listening to me tonight, and thank you so much.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in public forum? Senator Knight, the floor is yours.
Man, what a night already. I know that we're already tired. I can tell it's the first day back, but I'm going to be honest with you. This is something that is very emotional and very, I don't know how to put it in the right terms, but something that is very sensitive to me. Something that I feel needs to be addressed. So, one sec, sorry. So, fellow senators, I rise before you today to announce my impending resignation from this chamber and the suspension of my seat following tonight's adjournment. Within these walls, I'd find myself not shunned by the majority of my fellow students, but rather marginalized by those in positions of higher authority, not by an administrative level, but a peer leadership level as well. If you believe that my remarks pertain to you, then they may. This address is not to publicly humiliate or single any individual out, but to spread awareness in circumstances that are unforeseen. Multiple credible sources have brought to my attention the egregious breach of my personal information safeguarded by FERPA, encompassing details such as my grades, my financial status, academic history, and beyond. Shockingly, my medical information has also been recklessly disclosed to individuals within this body who neither possess the authorization nor entitlement to access such information. As many of you are aware, and I have been very clear and open about this matter as this is not an issue to me, but I was hospitalized at the start of this year for about a week. Regrettably, my silence regarding the specifics of this ordeal have been breached through the release of my confidential medical information. I'm very open about me being gone for that week, but I am not open about the reason behind it. Sorry. The information regarding my mental health, physical and mental disabilities, and other personal matters have not only circulated, but have been wielded against me in creating an image of myself that is nowhere near factual to who I am. I quote members of the Senate leadership, whom I've confirmed with and communicated with, to state this generalized quote to not cancel anybody out. Generalized, it speaks, look out for Garrett. Keep him quiet. Furthermore, my ADHD diagnosis was, without my knowledge, a center of discussions related to my position of authority and my ability to pursue further leadership positions. This is concerning as this is a legally protected right under Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act passed back in 1990. It has been just over 3 decades since this act was passed, yet discrimination and wrongful judgment of individuals are still occurring to this day. And whether you recognize it or not, even within these chambers. Regrettably, my academic performance has been used as a threat to my position on multiple occasions. This tactic is deeply troubling, especially when a student faces academic challenges due to health issues. Such challenges should not be weaponized, but rather met with support and accommodations. These accommodations, like for example, extended test times or additional days for assignments. Also, these place a burden on our dedicated professors. Granted, they don't really have an issue with it, but this is something that takes their time. They have to adjust their grading and curriculum to fit each and every student. This is not the fault of any one party, but rather a flaw in the process meant to keep us accountable. It is for these reasons that I shall later present a bill on Wednesday, November 1st in 2023, where I will return as a student, not a senator, which mandates the Senate's compliance with accommodations and support for students and faculty within this assembly, shielding them from the reprehensible disclosure of their confidential information to unauthorized parties, mirroring the egregious violations such as the ones that I have endured. My team and I hope to extend this further to campus RSOs to protect every student and activity across campus. I want to be blunt and upfront about myself. I am nowhere near the best student at Wichita State. I've struggled with homelessness, financial hardship, personal health issues, and I didn't want to get into any of that now, but it's been released. And so the knowledge is out there, so there's no point in hiding it. I've failed classes, and I've made some very poor choices, and that will reflect on my future. But I will not let it hold me back. I'm a student who will stand up for those silenced voices to make sure no other student has to go homeless, has to go without food, has to go without proper medical care, or is struggling in silence. Privacy is a fundamental right of each and every one of us. For you, for me, and every student at Wichita State University. Your privacy is not the right of others, so do not settle for less than what you deserve. I wish to extend my profound respect and admiration for each of you, each and every one of you. Our time together has been marked by moments of inspiration and collaboration, and I shall genuinely miss working alongside some of the most dedicated, impassioned, and supportive individuals on this campus. You hold the power to make change at Wichita State University, and I have unshakable faith in your ability to do so. I implore you to not allow anyone to undermine your resolve, belittle your contributions, or isolate you. While this may not be my last appearance in this chamber, I will suspend my seat until these issues are resolved to my satisfaction. If the necessary changes are not made, I will not return, but my commitment to the students remained, and my chair will be vacated. If you sense that you too are facing a similar ordeal, I urge you to raise your voices and cast a light on your circumstances. That is why you're here. You are here to stand up for the students, but you first have to stand up for yourself. I will repeat that one more time because this was a hard lesson that I had to learn. You are there to stand up for the students, but you first have to stand up for yourself. You are not alone in this struggle, and you are not irrational, nor are you overreacting. You, again, possess the fundamental right to determine who is allowed to have access to your academic, personal, medical, and mental information. Whether it's through FERPA, whether it's through peer-to-peer, whether it's through professor to student, any of that, you have the right to control what they know about you. I express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for the time that we have shared and the opportunity to stand united in pursuit of what is best for the students of Wichita State. There are no words adequate to encapsulate my deep affection for you all, every single one of you, whether you joined last week, the week before, or have been here for 4 years. I also cannot express my profound indignation at the injustices that I have suffered and my profound disappointment in recent events with what has been going on. I will stand for questions.
Chairperson Adriana Owens.
First of all, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. Secondly, I want to ask what you think that Senate leadership, advising staff, and the rest of the Senate body should do to make sure this doesn't happen to another individual again.
So, which you are on top of the bill that we have created together. This bill will help keep privacy at an all-time high. It forces them to accommodate with OSAT. And this also gives everyone the ability for accommodations without any questions, any hesitation, and it forces people to respect them for who they are. What I request from the student body and from you guys is to approve this bill to help no other student feel the way that I have before. And on top of that, I would love for it to work its way out into the Wichita State community. Protect every student on campus. But again, we have to protect ourselves to protect them.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in public forum? Seeing none, we're going to move on to section 6, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any objections to the consent agenda, excuse me?
Point of information. I don't want to object, but I had a question about one of the points, particularly SB-66-168, the recognition of Fight Club.
So I believe
there's clarification on what that is.
I think someone clarified it in the group me or the
Yes,
teams.
I dropped the mission statement of the group in the group me. The organization is approved and meets all qualifications.
It's not actually Fight Club.
Okay, I just wanted
Yes.
a general, like, hey, it's actually this. Cool, good stuff, good stuff. No objection. Proceed.
Senator Bobbitt.
Now that it has been brought up, can we just, for the record, read that statement out so that audience and people watching understand what we're talking about?
Yes, I'm just gonna pull it up on my phone. All right. It shall be the purpose of the group to expand and enrich theater education by providing a structured, educational, and safe platform for the exploration and application of stage combat techniques. Our mission is driven by a commitment to enhancing theatrical experience, fostering creative and artistic growth, and ensuring the physical and emotional well-being of our members. So there was just a typo in it.
Okay. Are there any objections to the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved as such. Moving into section 7, consideration of pending business. Item 1, act on request to approve the AR-66-001, the professor course profile. Is the author here and would like to speak?
I'll give a brief description for those who have forgotten what this is about. This is a resolution hoping to increase course information that's in course selection surrounding professor experience, a basic syllabus, book requirements, and previous academic success of people who have taken that class, and also withdrawal rate.
Okay, so we will not be having a questioning period as this is up for a second read. So we're going to move straight into debate. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation of this bill? Senator Bobbitt.
I would like to speak in negation of the bill. Although this bill is well-intentioned, I do believe it is fundamentally flawed. I do want to clarify that I do support the right of students to be more informed and more engaged when selecting courses. I just do not believe that this bill accomplishes that. Going through the bill, the sections that I believe set this bill up for problems is that starting with the first whereas or second whereas section of the most used source of information on a professor's teaching style is an outside online source with limited sample data. The reason that sample data is not provided to students is because numerous studies have shown that sample data disproportionately scores professors of color and women lower than their male counterparts. So providing access to this information fundamentally alters students' abilities to make an informed decision without bias. Then under a similar objection for whereas there is also no indicator of if it's a professor's first time teaching the course, this information has no upside benefit besides biasing students against first-time teachers. By taking students and saying, hey, this professor has never taught the course before, it could make students less willing to give that professor a shot. And I think we've all experienced it. Amount of time teaching the course does not directly reflect on how well you teach the course. I've had professors who've taught the same course for a long time that have not taught the course very well. I've had new professors who have taught it very well. Moving down, under the urging the university to provide information on letter grade distribution, this information is not available at any level with the exception of the deans of the colleges. This information is heavily protected and is not available due to concerns over students' privacy rights, and the information that is available is not necessarily something that should be taken into account. There is very little way to implement this requirement without directly putting the privacy rights of students at risk. Then, once again, moving down, same objection to professors' time teaching the course. This section has very little upside and has huge potential to create fundamental problems for new professors and professors who may be taking over or may not be familiar with the course when they start. Given the rotating course schedule, it's entirely possible that in between the years that the course has been taught, professors have changed or the requirements have changed. That is why I have objection to the section requiring syllabuses. I believe it's a noble intent, but I have talked to professors across different colleges and across campus. The requirement to have the syllabus at the time of schedule release is not something that they can accommodate. The argument was made that syllabuses continue on from year to year, but that's not true. There may be sections that are similar, but I have experienced it where professors are still working on the final details of the course down to the last minute. I would encourage professors to be more open about releasing this information, but at the same time, this is a requirement that I heard stated outright that faculty cannot and will not comply with. So asking this of them is setting us up for failure and does not allow us to adequately get the needs of students across. We should instead go back and seek legislation that is actually implementable and enforceable. Thank you.
Senator Hansen.
I would have to disagree with the fact that releasing average grades would go against like privacy and stuff, because it would be unanimous, and also pertaining to these things, usually students would be required to sign a form that would tell them that, so I don't think it would necessarily have anything to do with their privacy because it would be unanimous.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in debate? Senator Suma.
One thing that I'm not agreeing with is the first whereas, where it talks about the success rate of fellow students. Like, what success rate are we trying to like get from a course selection? Because do we want to get success rate of former student or fellow student? Because you can't get a success rate while you're selecting the course. Like, there isn't a measurement for that, I think.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in debate?
Point of inquiry. Can I do that? Yes. So it seems like there was a question that was asked that seems like it could be answered by the author. Can I ask that question and swerve it to the author about success rates?
Do you want to clarify that, Chairperson Atkinson?
And I can.
I appreciate you, Adriana.
What I'm referring to success rate is the rate in which students pass the course to the standard in which they can move on to other courses. That is what I'm determining as success rate, is the ability to move on within their major after taking the course.
Chairperson Owens.
I'm kind of torn about which way I want to vote. I will probably end up abstaining as I want to see what the rest of the body has to say about this. But this started last year in academic affairs. Like the ideas of these kinds of things started with pass and fail rates, for example, being added to course selection. And Nathan began that in the committee with one of our initiatives, and seeing this in fruition and how like it's changed, I'm kind of, of two minds about it, particularly because I think pass and fail rates is a very good idea, not specifying A, B, C, D, F, but specifying whether or not the percentage of people that passed and failed a class. And, I think that would be something that's doable, especially at the beginning and as a first draft of a resolution rather than, down to the letter grade. I do agree with the previous senator who said that I don't think privacy is really the issue or really an outstanding concern when it comes to this type of legislation. I think the previous senator did talk about the enforcement mechanisms by professors, and I think that's a good point to talk about of like, it is professors' responsibility to put this into action once they see this, if they so choose. I don't really see that response from professors from this, and I don't feel as if that response was garnered. But I'm of two minds because I think it is a really good idea, because the idea of simply getting up your schedule to like add spring classes, and there it is, pass and fail rates, that's lovely to see, because it's like, yeah, I don't want to take a class. It's like 75% of people fail, especially in the event if I have a scholarship that like means I have to be at the university, and if I fail, or if I'm an international student and if I fail a class, those kinds of things are hard and scary. So yeah, of course I'm going to choose classes that have more pass rates, but I would like to see more conversations with professors happen. In the event that this does pass, we can absolutely bring this to faculty senate. That can be something that we do, and then we talk to professors. But in the end, this isn't like a fine line. This has to be, passed this exact way, because that's not our purview. It's not possible for us to do that for professors. But yeah, as I said, of two minds about it. I think it's a good idea to do pass and fail rates, and I think all of the reasons and the conversations Senator Atkinson has had over the past year have like proved fruitful, and I just want to give him his flowers. He's worked on this for a while, and he's like really excited to do this, and I think it is a great idea. But I'm, wishy-washy with certain other things. Thanks.
I'm going to allow one more person to speak in debate, and then we're going to move into the voting period. Chairperson Thompson.
I am also rather conflicted on this legislation. So the main reason why privacy concerns are related to the grade distribution is because students' exact grades cannot be attached to their ID numbers or any other personal information about the student. And so I can see a concern raising with letter grade distribution and specific plus and minus, designations. But I see a lot of value in having a lot more information provided for courses. And so I do support a legislation of this type being passed in this session. But like the previous senator stated, I would also like to see more statements of support from instructors and teaching faculty related to what could be possible, what could be implemented. But beyond that, I also don't agree that we should display if it's the instructor's first time teaching a course, nor the time that they've spent teaching a course. This is not necessarily something the university can easily whip up. I also don't think it is fair to allow students to elect not to take a class because an instructor has not taught it before. I do, however, agree that information about course text requirements should be more readily available much earlier on. And this has partially been done already for the at least 100 classes that have been enrolled by instructors into the Open Alternative Text program, which allows for courses to have an OAT designation on the enrollment site. They show as being a Z or R course, meaning zero or reduced cost to student. So I would like to see more of that and more input from faculty. And I don't know if I can do this, but I don't want to vote against this legislation. So can I move to table this legislation indefinitely?
I think I would recommend that if there are concerns with certain language and or sections or would like expansion on, that you send it back to the Academic Affairs Committee to allow them to do that work, because tabling definitely does put it on the floor or does table it for the rest of the session. And if it fails, it can't be resubmitted as is, according to court's guidelines from the past. And so I would recommend that if there are enough concerns and or would like language change, one, attempt to make those amendments yourself, or anyone in the Senate, or to recommit it back to Academic Affairs and let them continue to work on it. I would also encourage, if you do that, folks need to communicate with the Academic Affairs members of what the concerns are so that they can do a thorough review of what those pieces are. I imagine that the Chair Atkinson would be happy to take that information, but I would recommend that if you do that, don't leave them empty-handed, provide them with the guidance of what other pieces you're looking at, but that would be my advice.
Okay, so finishing what I was on then, unless more people want to speak. I would like to see more input from faculty into what could be potentially implementable. And with that, I move to refer this legislation back to the Academic Affairs Subcommittee.
Okay, so that's gonna need a second. Okay.
Second.
Is that 2/3 or simple majority vote? Okay. So everyone get your clickers out. Turn on the power button and then hit AA to sign in.
The voting window is now open.
To clarify, you're voting to send this back to the Academic Affairs Subcommittee.
Just waiting on a few more.
And just to clarify, A is yes, B is no, and C is abstain.
With 29 yes, 1 no, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes.
Okay. So this will be sent back to the Academic Affairs Subcommittee. So now we can move on to item 2. Okay. Item 2, act on request to approve SB-66-139, the funding allocation bill. Is the author here and would wish to speak? Seeing none, yes.
The author is not here, but I can speak on their behalf.
Okay.
So in the Government Oversight Committee, we passed this unanimously. We find it to be a good move for us to make for our funding processes. But if I can speak in debate also, I move to amend after speaking with the funding committee about just terminology. We would like to add the line and quote, all unallocated and unexpended funds from the fall semester may be reallocated into the spring semester.
So is that you making a motion then?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? That's also going to require a simple majority vote. So, oh yeah, okay. Would you like to speak on that motion?
Sure. So the main reason for this is, well, We are likely to expend all of the money that we are allocated for the semester, but it is not as likely that all of the expended money is used. And so if we end the process for a semester and we have more than 15,000 available for the following semester, with the language in this bill, it makes it seem like they could still only cap it at 15,000. And so this language would just make that, clear.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in debate on the motion to add that amendment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into the voting period.
The voting window is now open. Still waiting on just a few more. With 31 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstention, the motion passes.
Okay, so now we are going to move back into debate on the bill itself. Chairperson Thompson.
I move to pass with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Okay, item 3, act on request to approve SB-66-140, increased eligibility for the hardship fund application. Is the author here and wish to speak? The floor is yours.
Yep, so just kind of giving a rundown, again, what it's saying. Essentially, international students in particular, we've had to deny almost every single one that have come to the Hardship Fund Committee due to the eligibility requirement of being a completely full-time student. Most of the time, these international students are grad students and don't have time to be a full-time student. They're also doing work or something else. So really, the amendment would be just doing that if you pay the student support service fee that pays for the fund itself, we all in the Hardship Fund Committee feel that you should at least have access to the application. And that's what the bill would be doing. Plus, with the domestic student application part, increasing the amount that you can ask for from 500 to 1,000, making both of them the same amounts.
Okay, is there anyone who'd like to speak in debate on this bill? Senator Bobbitt.
I'd like to make a motion to change the 1 credit hour requirement back to full-time, just continuing to eliminate the 1 semester previously completed requirement. It's moving it to full-time would put it on line with.
Madam Speaker, you need to get a second on that before you can debate it.
Is there a second? Okay, so then the motion fails. Yeah, okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in debate on this bill? Senator Mayu.
Could I get a point of information? So previously, you stated that anybody paying the student service fee would be eligible, but in the bill it says you have to be enrolled in at least 1 credit hour and or pay the student services fee. So
Yes, so it essentially says the same thing. When you do enroll for a credit hour, you pay the fee. Yeah, it's a part of it. So that's why there's that part in there of like, I don't know if there's some term down the line where you can be in a credit hour without paying the fee, then we can look back at this and change something. But as of right now, when you enroll into a credit hour, you also pay the student support service fee.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation? Chairperson Owens.
I think this is a great idea, obviously expanding the definition. I'm going to use a point of inquiry as well. Apologies. Tell me if I'm dumb for asking this, but the bill doesn't say anything regarding what they use that funding for. Is that discretion for the committee that's a part of that hardship fund? And if so, I'm so sorry, there's going to be a follow-up question. Something that I had thought of is for a lot of people, the accommodations or emergencies they have are that they can't seek accommodations because they don't have a diagnosis for something, especially international students. Getting access to a diagnosis for ADHD, autism, whatever they need. To get those accommodations through OSAT is inaccessible for them. So would it possibly be an opportunity for them to then submit one of these hardship fund application forms to seek money to get accommodations so they can, or that diagnosis so they can get accommodations? I know that was very convoluted, but that's my question.
Okay, so with your first question, it is up to the discretion of like what exactly we're giving them, not necessarily what we're giving the money for. This is in the title, it's a hardship fund, so it's if someone like gets in a terrible car crash and now they can't pay those medical expenses, they can submit a hardship fund application. The committee sees the case and they will decide on how much money we can or will give them. So it is up to the discretion of the committee. As for the accommodations part, I'm gonna go to him.
I think it depends. I will be honest, in the time that I've been here and we've had this fund, most of the issues that have come up have been around, right, some of these hardship things of medical bills or a student's all four tires popped, and so they needed, that was their mode of transportation to school and work. So we've been able to help support some of those things. This is not a scholarship for academics, and not to say that that accommodation would meet that, but it would be for the student themselves to be able to justify and to explain to the board who or what the need is, and it has to rise to a certain level that would deem a hardship, because one, there's limited dollars in this, and it is designed for emergencies that come up and for extreme hardships, and so the short end of that answer is it would be on the student to justify it in their application and their request in a written format, because we currently do not let them appear before the board for good reasons, and to be able to kind of explain that. So hopefully that answers your question. It's probably not like clear enough, or it is not a clear enough answer to it, other than it would be on the student to have to be clear in their justification for what it is. If it is for an academic reason or a scholarship reason, then the statute or this section would would require us to have to deny it, because it can't go towards your academics. It has to be for something that would prevent you from continuing to be a student at Wichita State, is what the intent of this fund was designed for.
Chairperson Arons.
I also have a point of inquiry. Something that came up in the subcommittee when this was being voted on was, although it's not a scholarship fund, if a student were to like get in an accident and then they were out of work and that work was paying for their schooling, how would something like that work?
The flaw with this is once we write the check, we don't really know what happens after that. It is our hope that the intent of what the student is submitting they'll use it for those pieces. I think in that circumstance, again, it would be tough for the student to go, right? It would go through their student account, and then they'd be refunded for that portion of it. My hope is that if they, with your example, right, got into a car accident, based off of what they were submitting in their application, if it mentions to pay for schooling, or if it mentions to pay for a balance on my tuition, those would be signs of which we would have to deny it, because they're saying that they're going to spend the money on tuition or scholarship or things like that. And so it would prohibit us from moving forward with even funding it, because they've mentioned a scholarship, paying for academics, or paying for a balance or whatnot. It is not to say that student government doesn't have other resources in scholarships that SGA has, and there are other mechanisms that if it is a scholarship issue or an academic issue, or in the sense of tuition and needing help with scholarships, they can apply for one of SGA scholarships that are available to them, and this fund may not be that recommendation. We wouldn't leave the student high and dry. If it came a concern and the board ultimately denied it, then staff would reach out to the student and provide them additional resources in other capacities. Whether it is, hey, you mentioned about a scholarship, we have a couple extra scholarships available for international students, or fill in the blank, and we encourage you to apply for that, and then they could review that and help support in that space. If it is other things that the board can't address, because in reality, it can't address everything, then we will connect them to other resources on campus to kind of help address some of those pieces. Really be honest, SGA is not the only source of hardship and emergency dollars. Some colleges have some, the university has some, and so we would connect them to other folks for those pieces.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation of this bill? Senator Mayu.
I have another point of information. Could you explain any sort of documentation that would go into this? And if there is none, could I make an amendment to add that on here? Because as it stands, it kind of seems like anybody who applies for it and you review their financial information, it could be approved or denied strictly on that.
Okay, so when you apply for it, we do have record of like how many hours you are enrolled in. And if it's your first semester, if it's not, there's like within the application process itself, that's already, I think it's just a part of like when you hit apply on SGA's website, it'll tell you everything of what you need. So it's already in there.
I was meaning more like if you were in a car wreck, it would be like a medical reimbursement.
Okay, so yeah, so when it's something like that, there's another section when you hit apply now, it'll say, and any supporting documents. So we would hope that you would submit those. If you don't, and the committee or the advisory board is like, okay, glad that you're submitting this, but we really want to help you. Will you give us more information, such as, do you have the bills that you can give to me? And then they have a time period to respond. And if they do, great, and then we can help them out.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation of this bill? Chairperson Owens.
No question here. And I think a lot of the questions people are asking can be answered after and not pertaining specifically to these, X'd out points. I will be asking you a question later. I think it's a great idea. I think reducing the amount of credit hours required is a really important thing to do, especially when people are going through like one of the worst struggles of their life. Sometimes people need to withdraw from classes or need to do less, and that I like that this portrays that. And so yeah, I will definitely be voting in favor.
Senator Mallard.
I have a point of inquiry, not so much towards the bill, but towards Senate as a whole. Does any policy we pass also affect auditing students since they're technically not paying and or their classes don't count as a credit hour?
Can you say that one more time? Sorry.
So for like in geology, we have students who audit the class and they are not actually paying for the class. They're not getting an actual degree. Does any policy, regulation, anything in our rules also apply to auditing students since they're technically not students?
Okay, now I get it. No, so SJ's constitution only says fee-paying students are members and are bound to the policies of student government. And so that also would exclude them from utilizing SJ resources such as scholarships, hardship funds, and whatnot because they do not pay the student fee. So anyone who is auditing, anyone who is not degree seeking because they don't, then non-degree seeking students wouldn't pay the fee, do not get to reap the benefits of student government dollars because they don't pay into they don't pay the student fee. So no, they would not be eligible and or be able to submit an application for this.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak in negation of this bill? Okay, seeing none, for the sake of time, we're going to move into the voting period. Please turn on your clickers. AA to sign in. A is yes, B is no, C is abstain.
The voting period window is now open. With 30 in favor, 0 no, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
Okay, we're going to take a brief recess, be back at 8:50. Okay, it is 8:50. Senators, please take your seats. Okay, I re-adjourn this meeting at 8:52 p.m. Moving into Section 8, consideration of new business. Item 1, act on request to approve AR-66-002, Peace in the Middle East. Is the author here and wish to speak? The floor is yours.
Okay. In a world where silence can be deafening, let us remember that speaking up, not out of compulsion but compassion, can ignite the flames of change and thaw the icy grip of indifference that often surrounds the suffering of others. Today, I present this body with the opportunity to speak up and speak out against hatred, violence, and terrorism. On October 7th, the terroristic militant group named Hamas unleashed an attack on civilians and military targets in Israel, resulting in the assault, abduction, and death of thousands of individuals, among them children, elderly, Americans, and humans. This tragic loss of life echoes historical trauma experienced by Jewish communities, such as during the Holocaust. The crisis that has since unfolded in the West Bank and Gaza, as well as in Israel, has led to indiscriminate harm to the Palestinian and Muslim community, resulting in an increase in Islamophobia, causing fear and concern in those communities as well. Such events further reinforce the imperative of finding a just, peaceful, and lasting resolution to the ongoing conflict. It is also necessary to recognize the multi-layered historical context of occupation and the more recent Israeli presence in the West Bank, recognized as illegal under international and Israeli law. This emphasizes the need for a comprehensive and informed solution that acknowledges the grievances of all parties. Numerous civilizations have left their mark in this region, as both Israelis and Palestinians have, at different junctures in history, experienced occupation, dispossession, and the struggle for self-determination. While it is important to recognize these injustices, it is vital that all actions rooted in violence and terrorism be criticized and condemned. The well-documented actions that amount to war crimes and violations of international law must be ridiculed by the international community. This legislation is written with 5 operatives. Firstly, the WSU student government condemns, in the strongest possible terms, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, all forms of violence and terrorism, and crimes committed against Israeli and Palestinian civilians, foreign nationals, and humanitarian representatives. Secondly, we call upon the U.S. government to pursue a peaceful resolution to the conflict that recognizes the complexities, responsibilities, and obligations associated with the United States alliance with Israel, with the ultimate goal being lasting peace in the region. Thirdly, we urge the WSU administration to pursue further definitions for anti-Jewish and anti-Muslim hate speech, such as adopting the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition for anti-Semitism. Fourthly, we stand in solidarity with individuals impacted by this crisis in Israel, West Bank, and Gaza, and encourage all students seeking comfort, community, and understanding to seek assistance through counseling and prevention services, the care team, and the Office of Student Health Services. And lastly, but importantly, and applicably, this body encourages the peaceful demonstrations of solidarity on Wichita State University's campus, and we dissuade all students from participating in hate speech, violence, and discrimination against the Jewish community, Muslim community, Israelis, and Palestinians. These crises have caused a surge in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. This is causing fear and concern. It is so very important that our voices be used for good, and it is upsetting to see statements in our own local community that advocate for righteousness and or vengeance. Let this legislation stand as a testament to our commitment to a better, more peaceful world. We've discussed the importance of raising our voices with empathy and purpose, and today, as we take a stance against hatred, violence, and terrorism, let it be a beacon of hope that guides us toward a future where every individual can live in peace, free from fear, and with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Thank you. I stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Chairperson Owens.
And we've talked about this as well, but could you talk a little bit about the organizations that you've talked to and collaborated with on this piece of legislation?
Yeah, and to start that off, I apologize for the expedited timeline on this. It has not been easy to communicate over a 4-day fall break, but there has been communication with the leadership of the Jewish Student Alliance and the Muslim Students Association to try to find language that we can all agree to, and we can move forward against hate speech, terrorism, and violence. The main goal of this legislation, from all of our perspectives, is to condemn violence and advocate for peace.
Senator Bobbitt.
Given the extreme amount of backlash towards universities, students, faculty, and the community members from universities across the nation who have issued similar statements, what kind of guarantees and or wording would you seek to avoid a similar situation occurring here at Wichita State?
If I could pose a question back to you to clarify, are you looking for what exact terminology in here is advocating against actions that we've seen elsewhere?
More broadly, just as this document continues to be worked upon, what kind of assurance can you give the Senate that you will not put us in a position of that, like, could be damaging to the university or individuals in the room?
Okay, understood. Thank you for the question. So again, the purpose of this legislation is not to convey personal opinions, personal beliefs. It's to speak to what has happened, the injustices that are going on and actively happening now. This legislation is rooted in facts. We are not trying to purport any opinions in this legislation. And again, the main purpose of this legislation is to advocate for peace on campus. And so I feel that the wording in this legislation, the language in this legislation, presently does advocate appropriately for that. And like you alluded to, the wording in this is not final. We will be working on it in committee as we will have representation from these student organizations. And the main purpose of the additional language will be to speak to events that have happened since the beginning of the current unfolding events.
Senator Lewis.
Notifying the federal government is very good, but how are we ensuring that by voting, or if we pass this, how are we ensuring that we are notifying the federal government that we have this position?
I will defer that to the advising staff that would be performing that.
So every time a resolution is adopted, there's always the final clause of the be it finally resolved, a copy of resolution to be sent to. And my conversations via email over break, I shared of making sure that if we want to send it to our congressional delegation, that we need to include it into that listing of people who would get it. Whenever the student government, so the Senate and the student body president, approve a resolution and a formal statement that asked us to send it to someone, then the chief of staff in the executive branch is required to then begin that process of sending it out to folks. If there are implementation pieces that have to happen, then again, those also happen in the executive side. So I would assume that in committee, some of those pieces are going to be added. Okay, he's nodding, so I'm gonna go with yes. And then whatever final list comes out of that, then a copy of it will be sent to those individuals. And that would be within practice we've done in the past. We typically have emailed a copy to our contacts in those delegation offices, and then we've also mailed a copy of it to them as well.
Are there any other questions, Chairperson Owens?
Going off of a question from Senator Bobbitt, have you talked to the university about, I'm not up to date on whether or not they have made a statement about the conflict, but have you talked to the university about potentially statements that they may release or, agreements on this piece of legislation, or is that conversation going to happen after it's, voted on?
Right, that conversation would primarily happen after the legislation is voted on. We don't want to rush to force the administration to write something preemptively. I, in the last several days, have not spoke to the administration. However, there have been individuals that have advocated for some of these beliefs in the past in legislation in previous meetings for Senate. I could defer that to the president of JSA that's present if they wanted to elaborate on that. But yeah, that conversation would continue after this legislation would be passed.
Are there any other questions? Senator Mayhew.
All right, so you say that there's an emphasis for the need of immediate measures to address the inhumane treatment. Is there any other sort of action that we're going to be doing, or is it just to be aware of what's going on?
Part of it is awareness, yeah, but I see the primary purpose of this legislation to speak to the students on what we do and do not support in terms of advocation and demonstration. And so again, that last line is advocating for all demonstrations of solidarity on Wichita State's campus to be peaceful. And we dissuade all students from participating in hate speech violence. And there's more listed.
Are there any other questions? Senator Mallard.
Along those lines, what you just said with the dissuades hate speech, so on and so forth on that whole section, is also the hope for, let's say, by chance, one group were to slander another group, or one group were to start, quote unquote, attacking or fighting another group in any way, means, in a code of conduct or a report that was filed, that this would be potentially used in saying we've made it very clear that we do not condone this and that this is unacceptable. Is that one of the hopes as well?
Could you phrase again the beginning of that and the applicability to conduct and RSO rules?
So it says, be it further resolved that this body...
I meant like how you were relating that to RSOs and conduct.
Like, let's say any group were to slander another group in a violent way, be it whatever, and then they were to report it in the terms of this with the Israel, Palestinian, Muslim, and whatever else was in there, would the hopes then be that we have a resolution stating, we've made it very clear that that's not allowed and it violates this exact line item, instead of just saying, oh, that just violates you slandered someone.
Okay, I see your question now. I don't believe that any of our legislation, unless specifically applicable to conduct and rules, can be used against RSOs, but this legislation is advocating for those RSOs to not violate those rules. So of course, we encourage free speech, we encourage the right to demonstrate, but we dissuade all students from participating in things that go against the conduct and the rules of RSOs. If you want to expand on how Senate has leeway in the rules that RSOs have to abide by, I'd invite you to.
What a wonderful question. The student organization statute makes it clear that student organizations have to abide by the SGA Constitution, bylaws, Student Bill of Rights, and any resolutions adopted by the student government. So while the current resolution doesn't specify it, conduct would not then interfere in student organization, student government pieces to student organization, right? You all have, the student government has the ability to put in policies how they want to with student groups. So while this may not specifically say it, if there were an issue to come up and a member of the Senate were to go through its process with student organizations, which is laid out in the statute, then theoretically, depending on if you use this as a resolution, because if it is adopted and it is signed off on, then it does become, at least for this session, it does become some binding piece in there for student organizations. The minute the session is over, it goes away because it doesn't then carry the weight for the new incoming session. So that was a long way to say it is circumstantial and would be dependent on someone within the Senate or within student government to enforce that piece in there should they decide to do that.
We learn something new every week. We'll talk about that further in committee next week.
For the sake of time, I'm going to close the questioning period. This was only a first read, so this will be referred to government oversight. Item 2, act on request to approve SB-66-181, confirming Pushyamitra Pabaraju as an international senator. Would you like to come speak?
Thank you for having me here all. So as I can see, there are many people I didn't expect that this meeting will be this much intense or something like that. You're really talking, technical stuff, not the stuff which can actually talk over a table of a coffee. So you're talking the real stuff. I hope I can live up to the standards to the organization. So my name is Pushyamitra. I just want to introduce myself. I'm pursuing my master's degree in engineering management. This is my 3rd semester. I'm representing engineering department as a senator here. So most of the people think why you? Why can't any other people? Because engineers, they can solve world problems. An engineer can solve any problem which you can give to his table, but he can't express his problem. It's a proven fact. A legend said me this. His name is Adam Lynch. He teaches lean to us. When I went to him and I asked why engineers are not that much big presentative people, they can't present and they can't be a manager. He says they know how to solve problems, they don't know how to express their problems. It takes a manager to express that. So by God bless, fortunately, I'm dealing with engineering management subject. I'm a part engineer and part management person. When I'm listening to the problem, I'm actually an engineer. When I'm talking about the problem, I'm actually a management guy. So I can be the voice of the people who are in the engineering department here. So I'm actually working with the student affairs because previously I worked with a startup called Byju's. I was the marketing trainer for them. I had experience of dealing with people. Why specifically that is? Because, when you talk with 10 people who are from 10 different countries, as we can see, there are many people here who came from different countries, different backgrounds. There I'll get a chance to talk with those worlds, 10 different worlds. I don't even interact with, I just don't interact with people. I interact with their goals, their things, their problems. If I got to know their problems, if I got to listen their problems and their goals, I can prepare myself not to be in that position. So I believe I'll give my 100% best, 100% to stay here and cope up with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Will you be standing for questions?
So yeah, do you have any questions? Not any technical stuff, sorry.
Chairperson Atkinson.
I see you're going to be joining my subcommittee in academic affairs. Okay. What do you hope to accomplish there?
So,
I see you'll be joining my subcommittee in academic affairs. What do you hope to accomplish in the subcommittee?
So I just want to be like, most of the engineers who are staying in the campus, engineers are restricted to the resources. If you give them good resources, they can build a new world. So in the academic thing, most of the engineers are not even aware what SGA can do, what WSU can do for them. So when I'm actually going to concentrate on that issue so that they're going to have the exposure to the things which are going to offer to them, like all the software things and all their problems and questions and all. I hope that answers your question.
Are there any other questions? Chairperson Haynes.
Yeah, as an international senator, I'll give my fellow, hopefully future international senator a question. What would, in your experience, what would you say is an issue that international students face on campus?
On the campus, my biggest issue is a kind of issue where, I'm not aware of what the things happening in the department. Till today, I don't know, no one knows that there is engineering, senator meeting will going on Wednesday. Today I got to know from my friend, he said that every Wednesday we are going to have the meeting. I thought only for this Wednesday. So the thing is, I believe if people want to evolve, they need to involve. So I'll make students to involve in the things. As an international student, everyone need to involve in everything.
Thank you. For the sake of time, we're going to keep this to 2 questions, but thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move into the debate period. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation? Senator Fan.
I move to approve this bill with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 3, act on request to approve SB-66-165, confirming Fabian Garcia Alvarez as an underserved senator. The floor is yours.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Fabian Gracia, and I am a freshman studying computer science. A little bit about me. I grew up in a small town called St. John here in Kansas with an immigrant family. Throughout my life, my family and community have always been an essential part of my life and identity. I chose computer science because I've always wanted to understand how our technology-driven world works and apply that knowledge to make actionable change. I'm eager to become a part of the Student Senate here at Wichita State for several reasons. First and foremost, I am a firm believer in the significance of student representation in the decision-making processes of our institution. By joining the Student Senate, I would have the privilege of being a voice for my fellow students, ensuring that their concerns, suggestions, and aspirations are taken into account when shaping the future of our university and community. One of my primary motivations for joining the Student Senate is my strong desire to advocate for the underrepresented students. As a fellow underrepresented student, I firmly believe that every student, regardless of their background, deserves equal opportunities and a voice in shaping their university experience. As a member of the Student Senate, I am committed to addressing the unique challenges and concerns faced by underrepresented groups, whether based on ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, or any other defining factor. I aim to champion inclusive policies, support initiatives that promote diversity and equity, and actively engage with underrepresented students to ensure their voices are heard and their needs are met. Thank you everyone for your time, and I look forward for the opportunity to work together with you all to make a difference here at Wichita State.
Will you be standing for questions?
Yes.
Are there any questions? Chairperson Haynes.
So I see that you're getting confirmed as an underserved senator. To you, what are some of the issues, or what are some of the biggest issues that underserved students face on this campus?
So I have not personally seen any issues because I'm a freshman and I've just not been around enough, but that doesn't mean that they're not there and they don't need to be addressed. And as I get more involved and with Senate and around campus, I plan to learn more about these issues and be an advocate for students that have such issues.
Are there any other questions? I guess I have a question, kind of banking off of what Chairperson Haynes said, because you are a freshman, so it would be pretty daunting to come into this space. What are some issues that you, as an underserved person in general, have faced in your life, if you want to touch on those?
So, as an underrepresented student, just the opportunity difference throughout my life, I've definitely had more difficult time, especially being in a small town, even less opportunity. And with my family, they've had to work hard for everything, so I've learned through them that nothing comes easy. And I've done everything I can to be in the position I am today. And I will continue to strive to get the most out of my university experience and take advantage of this opportunity.
For the sake of time, we're going to move into the debate period. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation? Senator Fan.
I move to approve this bill with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 4, act on request to approve SB-66-166, confirming Jack Delmar as a military and veteran senator. The floor is yours.
Hello, you get 2 questions, so I'll try to answer as many as I can before we get to them. First and foremost, I want to ask for your patience and understanding. This is not how I wanted to appear before you today, but I have a 1-year-old stylist at home who decided to make an inspired decision on my business wear, so thank you for your understanding on that. I'm here to be considered for the veterans position senator. When I arrived here at WSU as an adult veteran learner, I quickly picked up a work study. Upon arriving at the office, one of the first questions I had is, who do I talk to about the decisions that happen within student government for veterans? And I got a resounding, we don't know. So after talking with Lieutenant Colonel Burks in the office, we decided that someone needs to be available to speak on behalf of veterans, and I have the time and the experience to do so. I look forward to answering your questions.
Are there any questions? Chairperson Haynes.
Yeah, you said that you had the time and experience. Do you mind sharing with us what that experience entails?
Absolutely. From 2014 to 2017, I served in the United States Army. I enlisted as a 91 Charlie, went through basic combat training, completed AIT, and then upon arriving at my duty station, I discovered that my job had been contracted out and was expected to pivot into other MOSs. So I've learned to move on my feet. I've learned to take change as it comes, and most importantly, listen to the needs of a larger body as a whole in order to accommodate needs.
Chairperson Owens.
Hi, could you talk a little bit about some issues you think are the most important issues you think that veteran students have here on campus?
Absolutely. I think that veterans who come to college, they don't come straight out of high school, not to speak against people who choose to pursue their education immediately or to continue on from high school. But for a lot of veterans, we're adults. We've lived lives. We've participated in a career. And we chose to pursue higher education. That offers a different set of circumstances. It offers a different set of expectations and a different lifestyle to accommodate. I think having visibility and veterans knowing where to look to find those answers is important.
For the sake of time, we are going to close the questioning period and move into the debate period. Chairperson Owens.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to say to the body that I am the person to go to if you're talking about military and veteran students and stuff like that. That's under my jurisdiction, so if you have questions, come to me. Secondly, I think this is needed in this body. This seat has been left unfilled for far too long. It's sad to me that we don't have enough representation on campus for military and veteran students. So please vote in favor. And with that, I move to approve with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, act on request to approve SB-66-167, confirming Rosiah Izard as an at-large senator. Floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Rosiah Izard. I'm currently a freshman majoring in psychology and criminal justice. First of all, I want to thank you for your time. A little bit about me. My passion for student body government began in high school when I served as a sophomore representative and a junior representative, and then senior year as a secretary. And I also had the opportunity to join the Wichita chapter of the National German Honor Society as a sergeant at arms, and I found that experience to be very meaningful because I found it to be an excellent way to be able to advocate for student needs to those in charge and to those around us to be able to find ways to get students' needs addressed. So coming into Wichita State, I wanted to look for more ways that I could carry out that passion, and I started watching the student body government live streams. And I decided that that was something that I immediately really wanted to get involved with, so I really want to join in order to join other like-minded individuals in creating positive change on campus and continuing furthering that and fostering community and growth and success on campus. Thank you.
Will you be standing for questions?
Yes.
Are there any questions? Chairperson Owens.
I see that you will be put in the accessibility subcommittee, which is my subcommittee. Thank you very much. What are some issues on campus regarding accessibility or just issues in general that you found that you would like to address as your time in Senate?
Well, again, since I am a freshman, I'm kind of just joining. I'm not super sure about too many issues that I have seen so far, so I do look forward to learning more about ways that I can help within that. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we're going to move into the debate period. Is there anyone who'd like to? You can go. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in debate? Senator Fan.
I move to approve this bill with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. I'm so sorry for having to do this, but I'm going to move to extend the meeting time until 10 p.m. just so that we can get through all the important things. Do I have a second? Okay, so what? Well, we have to debate on it. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation of that? Basically, we have a lot of stuff to get through, and we kind of can't do it next time. So, anyone else have a comment to make? No? Okay, voting. Sorry. It needs 2/3, so.
The voting window is now open. With 27 in favor, 4 no, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
Yay. Kidding. Haha. Okay, item 6, act on request to approve SB-66-174, appointing AJ Jones to the position of Associate Justice. The floor is yours.
All right. Good evening, Senators. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you. Okay, as you all know, AJ Jones is a dedicated sophomore majoring in psychology with a minor in criminal justice. They have experience in the Johnson County Correctional Facilities and know the ins and outs. They are eager to join the judicial branch as an associate justice because they feel like that is where they should be and that's where they can serve best, especially in their career field. In their interview, they said, at the end of the day, everyone has bias, but only some can put that aside and make the right decision. I am confident in their ability to serve in this capacity, and I yield the rest of my time to AJ Jones.
Good evening, everybody. Ooh, y'all look tired. I'm gonna make this real brief. I am also tired as well. Well, as President O'Keefe mentioned, my time working in Johnson County is what really sparked my desire and kind of fire, lit the path for me for judicial overall. Working with Johnson County prosecutors, working in their victim assistance, and learning judicial procedures from the government level, like these are the top dogs, these are the big boys. And being tossed into that at 16 years old and working with them for quite a lot of time just grew something with me. And as many of you know, I also had formerly a position here on Senate leadership. I think that position for me, it was something that I was interested in, but as we all know, when something is not meant for you. So I decided to vacate that position to give the chance to somebody who can take it and run with the fire. But here, I'm convinced that being an associate justice is the position for me, and I will be standing for any questions.
Are there any questions? Chairperson Haynes?
Yeah, so so given your previous experience in student government, how confident are you that you'll be able to make like unbiased decisions in the Supreme Court?
As I mentioned in my interview with President O'Keefe, implicit bias is inevitable, but it takes hard work, it takes listening, it takes communication in order to work to put that aside. And working over the last couple of years and being in that environment to know that when you think with an individual mindset, you not only hurt yourself, but also the community around you. But versus when you think with a group mindset, you are keeping everybody in mind to the best of your ability. And being in Senate has given me the opportunity too to see it as a peer level and not just solely with higher ups.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We're going to move into the debate period. Chairperson Owens.
So in my time sitting next to AJ, I've just realized how wonderful they are as not only a person, but also a leader. And it was unfortunate that we lost them in the Senate body, but it would be a real shame if we lost them on this. They will do fantastic, amazing work. So I move to approve using unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 7, act on request to approve SB-66-175, authorize funding for Plan Street Incorporated Software Program. Advisor Fonseca.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank y'all. I know, right? So we are coming back to you all. For those who were on Legislative Council this summer, we spent a lot of time trying to find a platform, a system that we can use to help better with the operations in the shock and support locker. And so I kind of wanted to walk through a little bit of things and then talk a little bit about what we're looking at doing. So at this point, we have looked at six different softwares that are out there that institutions and food banks utilize to run their food pantries. And for us, we're looking at something to help us run our shock and support locker that is a little bit more intuitive than what we are doing right now with a good old Excel sheet that doesn't really super help us as much as we need when we are trying to run the locker as such. A couple things from just as you think about from a data perspective, last year alone, the shock and support locker served about 1,600 students, faculty, and staff. That is triple from the previous fiscal year. And so as you think about what our student staff and our staff are doing in managing those numbers and those quantities, we're using an Excel sheet to do that. And oftentimes that does help us, or that does impact our ability to be effective in utilizing pieces from there. Right now, when we collect student information, primarily when a student comes into the locker, they're swiping their student ID, and that's how we're checking them in, and then using this cool little spreadsheet that was designed to kind of help find that information. But we're really in the time now of trying to look at efficiency and trying to maximize time in providing support to the students who are utilizing the locker and minimizing the time of the technology that we're doing. So we spent some time, and Brandon brought the proposal for Plan Street. This software will allow us to do several different things. One will give us some real-time inventory. If you were to ask me today, Gabriel and staff, how many green beans are in the locker, I could tell you I don't know. And I don't actually think our staff could, because we have to hand count every single one of those things. And that takes a lot of time and time away from being able to do other pieces with the locker as well. So this will help us with inventory. It will help us with generating reports based off of time periods, which helps us with reporting back for grants and other things that we get and are able to utilize, able to generate user reports, tracking household members, so we know if students also have families or kids at home, that we can also be able to do that, as well as different language translations for students. So it overall makes it a lot easier on staff, specifically our student staff who are running the locker, to not have to spend so much time on the back end with these pieces. Now, you probably are looking at the bill. It is a pricey platform. So the proposal is asking for $10,500 for a 3-year contract, with $10,500 in its first year to implement that contract, and then next year, the years after that, for year 2 and 3, it's $5,000 to run that program. So that is what we are asking for. And for reference, both times we've approached the Legislative Council over the summer, we got approval for both of those platforms and ended up not using either of them due to the Data Management Committee who helped make the decision on utilizing platforms that are connected to student data. And this is one of the platforms that they signed off on as a system that they'll be okay with having access to university data. So that is our request, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Senator Lewis.
How specifically is it different than an Excel sheet?
So this does a couple of things. There's a user side, so a student who logs on to do it. An Excel sheet right now is only for the staff to use, and all we are able to do right now is find the ID number of the student, record how many items that they've taken, and that's pretty much it. And we track that for the entire time. This allows us to, and if we have to figure out a student who has maybe gone over their credits or whatnot, we have to go and look on that on the Excel sheet. This platform and this system will allow us to do that a little bit faster, or a lot faster, and we'll also be able to pull some historical pieces for the first time the student came into the locker versus the last time they came in, and we'll be able to allow us to do that for years past, where right now we build an Excel sheet every single week for the students to use, for the staff to use, so that we can track on a weekly basis, while this system will eliminate all of those pieces, and if someone goes in there and accidentally messes up the Excel sheet, you can't do that with the software. And so that also alleviates any of those issues, and having a lot more concrete information that the student can use and see for themselves, and then that we can see for ourselves as well.
Senator Suma.
You say that the program is supposed to reduce time. So my question is, when we approve this software, does it pose a threat to students who are working there, because most of them are paid hourly?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So the software is supposed to make things simple and like faster. Most students are paid hourly. Does it mean like approving this program, is it going to pose a threat to students that are paid hourly?
No, because they will still have to follow the same process of when the student comes in, they'll check them in on this system, and then as they're processing what students are picking up, they'll still have to do pieces with the software. It will just be able to speed it up so there's not a line outside the door, that we're able to address or take more students in at a certain hour or a certain time. So it speeds up the process from the user side, not necessarily from taking away from the student staff that are in there. And we'll just, well, right now, if 20 students come to the locker, it will probably take them about 30 minutes to come in and out, where with a software like this and with the scanning capabilities and some of the other things that we have, will drastically reduce that and not have a line outside of Grace Wilkie for the locker. There's also some capabilities for online ordering, which we're not necessarily, right, yeah. No, not this one. Yeah, but we're not going to launch that immediately because there's some other pieces we have to do internally to be able to address it. So just the ability to do a couple other things that we've not been able to do in the past with this software will allow us to do that in the future when we decide to do it.
Are there any other questions? Senator Fan.
In the bill, it says that it'll be $10,500 and that'll come from the reserves. Can you elaborate a little bit more where that money is coming from and how much money is left in the student fees reserves?
So it will come from the unspent dollars in SJ's budget, which technically twice now have been earmarked for a project like this. And so it is sitting there, and the fund for SGA's reserve itself, the treasurer presented earlier was about $110,000. So this will come out of that pile of money for this year, and then the other two, if it's approved, the other two $5,000 will then be added into the budget in the next 2 fiscal years after that. Similarly to, and none of you would have been here when we did this, not even Jay, surprisingly, but similarly to when we bought our election platform that we've been using, was approved 5 years ago, and when it was initially approved, funding was put in each budget cycle after that in order to pay for it from there. So it's a similar process that we've done with some of our other platforms that SGA has.
Senator Johnson.
Stop laughing, Brandon. It's not funny. Anyway. Sam, I know you said it was on the pricier side, and with it being a 3-year contract, are there any concerns like as you grow, or maybe like if it doesn't fit the best with WSU, or it's not functional for you guys, or there's like a program that's better, more functional, and that just grows with you guys as you grow to help more students? Are there any issues that maybe it's not the best and being locked in on a 3-year contract? Is there any like issue with that?
So the good thing about this is, unlike some of our other contracts, there's no limit to the amount of users who we can put into this. So some of the other the other 5, I guess, now that we've looked at, there were user limits of if you've gone more than 1,000, then you have to pay more for it. The good thing about this platform is that there's no limit number-wise. And similarly to some contracts that we write and enter with other folks, if there are pieces in which our software changes or our needs change or our budget changes, then there are some wiggle rooms. But typically, just knowing kind of what we have been doing the now 5 years, 6 years, and where we think we're going and where we honestly are going and need now, we're confident that this will be the software that will fill every single need that we have and that we've been looking for. And I see Brandon's hand, so I'll let him maybe fill in if there's other pieces.
Yeah, so in the contract that they were able to help negotiate, there's some opt-out options for us as well that we can explore. But at the same time, going towards your question, Senator Johnson, the Plan Street does a lot more than just food pantry stuff. So it's childcare, veteran cases, disaster, clothes. It's a host of different things. So any kind of social service, they offer an opportunity like that. So let's say at some point we want to add something that may not be through their food pantry baseline software option. There's some opportunities for us to reach out and say, hey, I want to take this one thing that you put on your adoption and child safety platform, and I want you to incorporate it into our plan. So there's some opportunities for us, based on our needs. We can always change those things.
Chairperson Arens.
Can you break down the price per year? Because I think you mentioned a 3-year contract, but in this bill it says it's $10,500 for 1 year.
So let me pull it up. Hold on one second. Yeah. So sorry, I may have misspoke because I was also reading a different proposal. So the breakdown of the price. So after year 1, it will be something different, but the base software itself is $5,000. There's the rollout services, so the implementation of things to get it all worked up and set up as well. It's the other $5,300. And then for us, as we look at it, what we're looking at trying to do is, if this works, then we'll enter into the 3-year contract, and we'll know from there what our base cost of the program is. And that decision will probably be made in the spring as we're designing budgets for next year, and then move on from there. So at least in year one itself, the biggest chunk of it is right with any new software is all the implementation charges that then fall off in year 2 and 3 if we decide to renew from there.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into the debate period. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in affirmation or negation of this?
Point of information.
Yes.
Is this being voted on and passed tonight?
Yes, it's funding. Senator Johnson.
I'm watching you, Brandon. But I want to speak in affirmation of the bill, as clearly it's a struggle helping so many students. I would be grateful that there's a platform to help us help so many students as it's increasing, and that students really do need the help. And if you can help as many people as you can, I'd be glad to speak in affirmation of a platform that allows us to do that.
Chairperson Owens.
I have a point of information to Brandon or Gabe. I don't know if this is privilege information, but the conversations we've had about the locker in the next few years, and you know, I'm going to just say it, lack of funding and ability to stock the locker. So is it lucrative for us to be funding this $10,000 program over products that we can stock the locker? I mean, what is it if we scroll through the software, but we have like 2 cans of peas? Like, I guess, like, I don't know if that's a conversation that the whole body has had, but, you know, in those conversations we've had.
Let me jump in, and then I'm sure Brandon will fill in with some other pieces. I think we're at the point now where we are pretty good at, this may sound, I don't think this is conceded. We're pretty good at getting additional dollars from outside sources. I think one of our biggest partnerships now that we've renewed with Kroger and some of those other pieces, having some of those stable funds to be able to support the locker. In reality, and again, this it makes sense, but it may not make sense. This is weirdly a sexy program for people to want to support and fund. And so our ability to go out and get grants, our ability to get donors and other pieces. I will say today, SGA and the locker probably have a lot more dollars than it did a couple of years ago. I know last year when we talked about the need of a product we're looking at more stable dollars, but I think some of the work that Brandon and the staff have been doing in securing some of those additional dollars, our efforts are working and our pieces are coming. In reality, even if we had the dollars to always stock the locker and always have the resources, there is always going to be an operational delay and an operational issue in effectively managing all of those pieces, right? If you think about the time it takes for a student to go and count every single can of green beans or every single can of this so that we know what a more accurate number is so that we can budget for purchasing items, securing items, getting items, that's a lot of time spending in an operation piece that a platform like this allows us to decrease dramatically and have it a lot more accurately by the student, by the product, by the item, whatever it is. And so just the ability to kind of keep things a little bit more organized is also a need in the effective operation of the locker itself. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, like Gabriel mentioned, we're doing a lot of things trying to get additional money in inventory into the locker. So, whether it's the $25,000, half of a $50,000 partnership with Kroger, we're also exploring some other opportunities. We just launched a partnership with Jersey Mike's. We're having a conversation with Panera Bread in a few days. We're going to be having conversations with a lot of other people to get some additional food and additional dollars into the space. So I think we're going to do a good job. I think of, like Gabriel mentioned, this is actually your thing. So I find it fairly easy to go ring on someone's doorbell and say, hey, do you want to help some students who are food insecure? Because right now it's working really well right now for us.
For the sake of time, I'm going to allow one more person to speak in debate. Chairperson Haynes.
I'm going to speak in affirmation for this, mainly because I'm going to use one of my employees, Stars McLean. As somebody who's a student assistant in Steel and has worked over the summer and has had to restock the locker and count every single individual can of corn and every single individual case of water bottles and every single tube of toothpaste, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And I think putting the money into the system now saves us in the future. Where look at all the money that we've gotten on data from Excel sheets, and then we invest this money and get more accurate data, pinpoint data into certain target demographics. That way, the presentation that McLean's probably gonna come here in, let's say, a couple weeks and give about the locker, it's a very much more detailed presentation. You know, that pie chart looks lovely now, but if we have this access to this data, more nuanced, more accurate data, it turns into a very pretty pie chart very quickly. So, yeah.
With that, we're going to open the floor for voting.
The voting window is now open. Still waiting on just a few more.
Senator Knight?
I don't know what it is about my remote, but like every time I've had a problem with it, it's not even turned on at this point.
We do have some batteries up here if you want to.
Oh, I just got it. 1 second. 1 second. Let's see if it works. I think it works now. My apologies.
With 29 in favor, 0 noes, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
Okay. Item 8, act on request to approve SB-66-176, revising override requirements. The author, the floor is yours.
Hello. So, the current threshold to override a presidential veto is based off the total number of seats. It is 45. The head count of the Senate as of October the 5th was 45. It would take unanimous consent to override a presidential veto at this point. And we struggle to maintain 45 people in the same chamber. So the point of this bill is to move the threshold to be in line with impeachment and removal, to be 2/3 of the whole Senate excluding vacant seats, so that we can always have the ability to override a presidential veto. I will note that this bill will require some amendments surrounding the difference between the words entire and whole, and to increase the time to get an override of veto and to be in line with the current mean time sale. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Okay. Seeing none, this is a first read, so this will be referred to the Government Oversight Committee. Item 9, act on request to approve SB-66-177, individual funding for Kami Bartholomew. Is the author here and wish to speak? The floor is yours.
Hi again. So once again, speaking on behalf of Treasurer Wang, who had to be out after 8 p.m. this evening. So the first individual funding, we're going to go through this quick. So the first one for Cami requested $497.83, and the funding committee allocated that amount. This covers lodging, travel, and registration costs associated with attending the American Chemical Society Southwest Regional Meeting. I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move into the debate period. Chairperson Arns.
I move to approve with unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 10, act on request to approve SB-66-178, individual funding for Bill Boo Buoy.
Yeah, so Bill requested $1,281.39 to attend the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society Conference. It does not say what we ended up allocating. Could you list it for me? Same amount. We allocated that amount. The funding committee agreed to allocate that amount. This covers lodging and travel costs related to attending the conference. The registration fee was covered by their department.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move into debate. Senator Knight,
I motion to approve with unanimous consent.
are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 11, act on request to approve SB-66-179, individual funding for Chinmay Kulkarni.
Okay, Chinmay requested $406.40 to attend the North American Power Symposium. The funding committee agreed to allocate that amount. This covers travel and the registration fee.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move into debate. Chairperson Owens,
I motion to approve using unanimous consent.
are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Item 12, act on request to approve SB-66-180, individual funding for Balaji Chandrasekaran.
Balaji requested the max for individual funding, $1,500 to attend the AIAA SciTech Forum. The committee, sorry, I lost my words. The committee approved that amount for this individual to attend this conference that covers all of the requested areas of funding.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move into debate. Senator Fan,
I move to approve this bill with unanimous consent.
are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. Moving into section 9, adjournment. I adjourn this meeting at 9:52 p.m.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so a couple, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I will turn on the flash and blind all of you. All right. So a couple updates real quick. Everyone who's been passing me about these headshots, y'all got a link in the group me if you need to get your headshot tonight. We're gonna do these real quick. We're gonna go click, 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 and get out. Our new senators, if you all can stay by for a little bit, I can talk to you. That'd be great. Have a great night. Everybody get home safely.
If you aren't going to keep your form, keep it on your desk. I'll pick it up. Don't throw it away. I will recycle it.